Welcome to the Manhire Show. I'm Dad.
I'm Jack.
I'm Will.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to talk about aliens. And we are inside.
Do you like this spooky thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. You got
There we go.
Perfect.
Then we're inside the house in one of the living rooms of our new home. And we've promised this alien show for 7 months.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, well, we haven't done
We
one
did
in like
Fatima.
7,
Will
yeah.
had the idea. Let's do an alien show. We said, awesome idea. Since then, we have all of this news on mainstream news about this UFO footage, or what do they call it? UAP.
Yeah. They changed it so it sounds less crazy now.
Yeah, exactly. It's not UFOs means extraterrestrial, I guess now.
Yeah.
The connotation of it, and UAP means legitimate Department of Defense.
What is it? Unidentified
Aerial phenomenon.
Yeah.
So it could be, I guess, a laser pointer.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a phenomenon.
It's true.
Might not be a flying object.
Yeah.
But we have all of this. We have all of this footage, I guess, that's being declassified, or at least it's classified and it's leaked. I'm not sure which one.
It's being declassified, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, and so at the end of this month, which is June 2021, the DoD is supposed to issue a report to Congress. President Trump, before he left, said, "I want a report on this to Congress by the end of June."
On aliens?
On the UAP
Gotcha.
issue, on the whole, because maybe we can find some video clips to put up when we upload this. But there have been a few videos involving the U.S. Navy primarily, both Navy flyers and on the deck of a destroyer, and seeing these things in some sort of formation in the sky. Who knows what it is? I mean, but it's. We'll get into what they could be, I guess, in a little bit. But they are now. It's now on mainstream news. It's not just on Coast to Coast AM. You know, it's not on just the overnight, the midnight show where we're talking about Bigfoot and that. It's mainstream news is talking about this,
And no one else is, though.
Yeah.
So, like, mainstream news is talking about it, but, like, on the day-to-day, I don't hear people at work going, dude, it's crazy. There's aliens now. Like, apparently the government's, like, releasing alien information. Where, like 5 years ago, I feel like everybody would have been blown, their minds would have been
That's a really good point, because, in all the movies and in our imagination of, hey, if we actually had stuff that people were taking seriously, we'd be freaking out.
Yeah.
Like Orson Welles' radio broadcast of War of the Worlds, and they were freaking out, right? That's a really good point. And nobody's talking about it. It's more like, oh, yeah, the UFO thing. Why do you think that is?
Well, I've heard theories that this has been planned to be released like this for a while. That like the last 20 years, it's been planned to. This is a conspiracy theory for sure, but this is at least what I've heard. That like the government's been basically slowly putting out small little things, or it's been ramped up in the media and stuff like that to kind of normalize people to the idea of like weird phenomenon like this. And then, so that when they do release it, there isn't mass hysteria. There's not a big problem.
Has that happened? Have we had 20 years of wading into the water? I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't felt. I felt like
I don't know. That's just what I've heard.
Before Fox News, it's on Fox News.
Yeah.
If you talked about aliens, it was a complete conspiracy. It wasn't like, oh, there might be.
Know about that,
or
though.
did you feel?
I think
Bigfoot.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think like the scientific world with all the new like exoplanets we're finding and stuff like that, not of our solar system, but the habitable planets. I think the alien conversation has become more mainstream than it did like back in the 80s, where you'd be like, that's whack. I mean, are there aliens? Probably not. I mean, maybe.
So
now it's like, yeah, there's probably aliens. Like if you ask, I think most people, they'd say, yeah, there's probably aliens. Have they came to Earth? I don't know, but do I think aliens exist somewhere in the universe? Probably.
That's a good point. So the exoplanet and the whole idea of other inhabitable worlds leads one very quickly to the conclusion that there's probably life on some of these. If they can sustain life, if the observations are correct, let's assume they are, probably something's there. Now, do they have technology that can come in and visit us, etc.? That seems like it's a next level step into the idea of, there could be some gravitational phenomena out there somewhere in the middle of the Milky Way there's a gravitational phenomenon between the Earth and the Moon right now.
Yeah.
You know, that it's here. You know, there's asteroids somewhere. No, there's an asteroid heading at the Earth. You know, there's something very imminent about this that doesn't seem to be there when you're talking about these exoplanets. But that's a really good point. I got to say that this morning, I'm a big Father Malachi Martin fan. I don't know if everything he says
the
is
dead one,
true.
right?
He's
The Exorcist.
He's that dead one.
Yeah.
The only dead one.
Yeah.
The only dead one.
Yeah. But he's the Exorcist that was pushed down the stairs.
Yeah.
At
So
least in conspiracy land.
yeah. So there are a few exorcists who are dead now. Father Gabriel Amorth, who died in 2018, was the Rome exorcist. But in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Yes, and he wrote books like Hostage to the Devil, Windswept House, some really good books that were exposing not only the world of exorcism, but also things that were happening within the church, and things that have been happening since June 29th of 1963, where there was a group that enthroned Satan within the Vatican and things like that. That Malachi Barton, right? So he's already primed for this type of conversation.
Yeah.
So I was listening to an old show with Art Bell, who used to be it was the founding host of Coast to Coast AM, that show that I always listened to. And it was from 1998. It was actually June 8th of 1998. So almost exactly, 23 years ago. And they were talking about this idea of aliens, and that people in the Vatican, like monsignors in the Vatican, were saying that, hey, we are actually seeing, extraterrestrial activity. It's not a hallucination. It's real. You know, the Vatican even came out with a document in the 90s that I'm going to super paraphrase and say, like, you know, the aliens are our brothers from a Christian perspective. They're rational beings. You know, they're that type of thing.
Really?
So now, Father Martin said, there's some real theological questions that happen for Catholics, especially, maybe for all Christians, but about, well, wait a second, if there are other rational beings,
Is there a second incarnation?
There, some people would say, do you have to have another incarnation? Does Christ have to come incarnate? I personally have an opinion that I don't think you have to go there.
Yeah.
But there are these questions that come up like, well, what does that mean? Are they saved? Are they savable? And so we should start talking about all of those. My point is, I guess I got off on this, that we promised to do an alien show because we were just interested in the idea, and now it's incredibly timely.
Yeah.
So
I do want to get into the theology of aliens in this show, though.
I think we should.
I have some good thoughts. I don't know if they're good, but I have some thoughts on that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll set the stage with what I know about the DoD stuff. I probably just said most of it already, but since 2017 or 2018, there have been released some footage that has been released, principally from pilots.
Yeah, it's like on their planes. They're like radar, not their radar, but they're like infrared sensors.
And they were looking for this. And they have multiple multispectral sensors and cameras. So they're looking at things from an infrared, from a visible light spectrum, et cetera, magnetic field, and they can identify these things. And they're operating with what the government is calling advanced physics. Advanced physics means that there's no clear propulsion system, because when you propel something, if you have it on video, if I'm going to propel this phone, I need a force that's going to move it. So if I throw it, my arm, the energy I'm using for my arm is propelling it. If I have rockets coming out of it, that fuel that I'm burning in the explosion is propelling it. These have no clear propulsion systems, and they can do things like go Mach 5, that's 5 times the speed of sound, and then turn at a 90-degree angle and go Mach 5 with almost not zero acceleration, but
instant deceleration.
Instant deceleration, instant acceleration. So acceleration is the second derivative. What's the third derivative? Jerk. I forget. Anyway, it's velocity, acceleration, and then I think it's jerk is the first. But they don't have any jerk. In other words, they can accelerate from like 0 to 60 in no seconds. They're going Mach 5 all of a sudden, and they're going from Mach 5 to 0. Yeah. And there's
no like ramp up. It's just instant power, basically. It looks like.
Yes, and we can't see anything that has
Elon Musk.
We can't see anything that has necessarily an aerodynamic that we'd be used to seeing in aerodynamics with wings.
They're like pill shaped. They're like the shape of a Tic Tac.
Tic Tac, right?
Yeah, that's what they call them in the videos.
Like, and there's and they can submerge into the water without destroying themselves. So anything that's usually going Mach 5 from the air and hits the water, it would...
It's like hitting a brick wall.
It's like hitting a brick wall, right? There's no destruction. There's no parts falling off. There's no slowing down. And so there's these advanced physics, technology that we can't understand. Now, from what I hear, and again, who are the anonymous they say, which are supposedly scientists that know what they're talking about, they say there is a theoretical way that this could happen. It's just that we're not even close to the technology to be able to make this work. I can't remember if this is correct or not, but essentially think of it as they've been able to harness quantum mechanics in a way that on a macro scale that we can't understand how they do it. But you know, photons do this, but I didn't know that craft could do it, but they figured out how to do it. They've learned how to warp gravity or something, you know, to use something that beyond our normal propulsion. And this has been going on for a very long time. This has been going on for many years. And
Well, I think most of the footage is from like 2007 or something like that, like 2005 or.
I think it's been, you know, and so the long history is there was in the 40s.
Oh yeah.
The issue of this UFO issue came up, and the government had an open investigation, especially with the Department of Air Force.
Was this like Roswell or
Project Blue Book?
Oh yeah.
And Project Blue Book ended, I believe, in 1969. I might be off on that date. In which they said, we have no evidence of any unidentified flying objects. We have a bunch of stories. We went and interviewed a bunch of people. We've looked at stuff, but we have no evidence of that. The government is no longer interested in spending resources on investigating these phenomena. So that turned out to be a total lie because millions and millions of dollars were filtered through the DOD to set up this unit that actually was investigating these things.
Oh, really? I didn't know this.
And that's why the pilots were looking for these things. Now, I don't know, Hannah's here on the board. I don't know if your dad has any stories, but most of the fighter pilots...
Oh, yeah, he was a diplomatic pilot for the Navy.
Most of the fighter pilots said when they went up, they'd see this stuff all the time.
Wow.
Like daily. Every flight they went up, they saw it. But they all...
What did they see exactly?
They would see things like the shape of a Tic Tac, like a little mint, you know, like a little pill, kind of. And
like
it would
oblong circle.
Yeah. And it would just move incredibly quickly, incredibly fast, incredible feats of altitude and submerging into the water. And it would sometimes go away from them and they'd come up on it and it would leave. They'd also see it hovering above certain things, almost like it was monitoring or something like that.
When you say a Tic Tac, not the size of a Tic
just
Tac,
the
but
shape.
like the shape of a Tic Tac? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That's
Exactly.
pretty crazy.
And I'm not sure what the size is. I'm not sure if you
it's
guys
not
know.
massive, but I think it's... Yeah, I would... From the footage, it looks like... Obviously, distance and everything's hard to tell in the sky, but it looks like something the size of a normal fighter jet or about that, maybe. Not like 737 size.
No.
Or, you know, bigger, but also not like car size. So I think,
Okay.
Yeah, so they were... So the folks in the military, especially pilots, were seeing this stuff. But there was this whole unit within the Pentagon that was put together for analyzing this. They had their own budget. My understanding is that they were part-timers, meaning they actually were hired to do another job, and they spent part of their day working on this stuff. But there was someone who eventually, I can't remember his name, Luis, sorry, Lou, who's now retired, but he was in charge of this, and he came forward when this stuff
was it as
came
like
out.
a front, their second job? Like, hey, we have you working on this aquatic research project, but your actual primary mission's this, but we need you to log hours over here so it looks like you're doing this? Or
No, it's not. It wasn't as nefarious as that. It was more like
we just don't want to dedicate all your time to this.
yeah, it was more like you're on grill at the fast food restaurant, but I need you to spend 2 hours a day in dining room.
Gotcha.
But I got hired as a grill cook. I know, but I really need you to spend 2 hours a day on dining room. You're getting paid the same amount. Don't worry. You know. So it was more of just being pulled off what's called a special assignment or a special work detail is what it's usually called in the government. And so there were folks that were seeing these, but again, there were folks that were dedicated to analyzing them and trying to figure out what it was. They weren't necessarily thinking extraterrestrial, at least that's what this one guy says. They were wondering is this a national security threat? In other words,
is it Russia or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does China have advanced technology where they are now spying on us?
Mm-hmm.
And is this their only capability where they're able to spy on us? Or can these things do other things that could be detrimental
like
to
how fast could they put a nuke into like,
right.
AC or something like that?
And that was one of the things that they kept finding these little tic-tac things observing were a lot of nuclear facilities.
Oh, interesting.
And they're like, why are they observing nuclear facilities? And so that's what they were thinking. Is this a national security threat?
Yeah.
And the small group stayed small. And one of the criticisms of the people that were involved in it were that this needs to get out because this needs to be analyzed full time, not by a bunch of part timers. It needs more resources need to be put into it, and we need to investigate because this is unlike anything that we have.
Yeah.
In other words, they went there first. They said, "Okay, what type of top secret stuff are we developing? What do we have under development? Is this our own stuff?
Yeah. Is this the B-52 bomber?
That happened in the 80s and stuff, right? We'd see that bat wing, and they go, "Oh, what is that?" Well, it ended up being one of ours, right?
Yeah.
These things are found above. They've seen them above Navy destroyers, ships at sea. They are in spaces where aircraft are not supposed to be, nuclear facilities. There is no flying around that type of stuff, but they're there. And so a bunch of footage has been, I think, first leaked and then eventually declassified. And then now at the end of this month, DOD is supposed to present a report to Congress. There's supposed to be a closed door version, and then there's supposed to be the public version, which my guess is going to be highly redacted.
Yeah.
But now, not just Fox News, but this was the big punch. There was 60 Minutes, which is a highly reputable news program, did a full show on it.
Wow.
They did a full investigative show on it, and I think since the 60 Minutes episode, which happened maybe a month or so ago, other mainstream news outlets are picking it up as a legitimate story to be running with. And they're saying, well, we don't know what this stuff is. We can't wait for the report. Yes, we need to, as Americans, we need to know, is this a security threat? What kind of security threat is it? But I think the thing that we're interested in on the show here, and hopefully our listeners are too, is that what are the implications for if this advanced technology ends up being beings that are not from Earth?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean to people of faith? And what are the, if you will, the theology of extraterrestrials and stuff like that? But that's pretty much the table set. And ask me questions if I left any blanks there.
That was really good. I have thoughts, but they're just thoughts. They're not really based.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have theology thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go.
So I'm in no way well, I'm going to take a crazy turn though. This is going to.
We're talking about aliens. So
well, it's not so crazy. Well, apparently, but I'm going to try to link what I know about aliens before it's become this popular thing.
Right.
So maybe first, man, should I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So my thoughts are that, have you guys heard of the Anunnaki?
The Anunnaki.
Yeah, which is supposed to be this intelligent being that has been around since the beginning.
Yeah, it's like the ancient Sanskrit,
Sumerian cultures and
pictures of the big thing holding the little monkey boy.
And around the Egyptian.
Who was the guy that wrote all those books about the Anunnaki and stuff like that?
Joe Rogan.
No, that was not Joe. It was not Joe Rogan. Keep going.
So my thoughts, theology wise, on what does it mean for a person with faith? You could what I imagine happening in our culture would be that they're these equal beings that are our brothers, and that it's this kind of this liberal idea in the meaning of no, they're one of us, and what does that mean for people with faith? Because we know that Christ incarnate is a human being, so as far as God in our creation, the creation story, he didn't incarnate as someone else, to our knowledge. We don't know that, but I strongly believe that it was just, I believe that the human race is the only race when it comes to God. So my thoughts on what an alien being would mean for people with faith, I lean towards demonic. I think in a way, just like in, I don't know if you've heard of the Book of Job, but
You mean the one in the Bible?
I'm sorry, not the Book of Job, Book of Enoch, which is
the Book of Enoch.
yeah.
It's apocryphal.
Yeah. And they talk about demons making these creatures that are like giants and they had this intelligence and they were all screwed up.
Right.
And so my thoughts on what would an intelligence being whatever and what the Anunnaki supposedly is, are these beings from another planet, I guess, or something, and they come here and they give us intelligence, and it's linked to the pyramids, where because it's kind of interesting because we don't know how the pyramids were made. There's pyramids in like South America, like all over the globe before there was even like this like worldly communication. So like there's all these mysterious pyramids, and a lot of the supposedly in the alien theory is that aliens came and gave this technology to these ancient civilizations to create these pyramids. Who knows what else that maybe got destroyed because it was such a long time ago.
Right.
But and you see these pictures of these beings in these pyramids too that are Egyptian and Egyptian culture and stuff.
So you have the whole ancient alien thing going on.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, if I'm going to put a large header
You were
on
on
what
that show, right?
talking about. So yeah, in 2015, when I had my hair really big and Einsteinish, one of my students, I was teaching at the law school. They had me for the first day, and they took a picture of me and they made a meme of me and the guy from the Ancient Aliens show. You know, I was actually on a plane one time and the stewardess was convinced I was the Ancient Aliens
really?
guy, and she was talking to me about the show, and I love the show, and I'm like, I'm not the Ancient Alien. She was like, oh, you're not? I said, no. She goes, yeah, it was. I was like,
Yeah,
but you really are, right?
Yeah, I think
you just
no.
want to, like, no, I'm really. She was convinced
That's
that
funny.
that was him.
That's funny.
And so, yeah, so the ancient alien hypothesis that aliens have been here before, and you can do a few different things with that. We came from them is one of the things,
the
right?
planet seeding,
The planet seed,
Anunnaki,
yeah,
like Prometheus and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. There's exactly.
Yeah.
Like the movie Prometheus, where that's one of the theories. The other one is they visited before, and this is part of the Anunnaki. I think the Anunnaki also has this idea where we came as a slave race for them because they came to our planet to mine gold, and they needed slaves to mine the gold, so they created humans. And then, but the planet they're on is that planet.
We were liberated.
Yeah, but Planet X, it's like the Planet X has that long elliptical orbit. It only comes around every 40,000 years or something. So they had to go after their planet, but they're coming back, right? Yeah. And these are our protogenitors, right? Or there's others that they just visited us before, kind of like more like the Man of Steel version, right? That humans have been here and they've had visitors.
They like monitor different colonies.
Yeah, they've had different colonies on it. Yeah, there's a colony in Antarctica or Arctic or
something like that. Yeah.
So there's many different ancient alien hypotheses. The question is, what does that mean for someone who believes in God as the creator of humanity?
I have a couple thoughts. One, to talk about I think the first problem, the Jesus problem of the incarnation. I don't know if it's the first problem, but like an obvious problem. Well, because I think there could be aliens. Oh, I think there definitely could be aliens, and I think there's really kind of two categories. They're either different than us, so they're not humans.
Okay.
But they're not the same. How do I say this? So like theologically, humans are the rational mind and the animalistic. You know, like I don't know if that's the right word to say it, but it's the physical soul and the spiritual soul. So we have the rational mind, like the angels and all of them do, and then we also have the physical body and the physical desires and stuff that, like, you know, physical beings have.
C.S. Lewis called us amphibians, that we have the
that's
spiritual
interesting.
nature,
Yeah.
can live in two different environments.
That's
We live
interesting.
at one and the same time in the spiritual world and in the material world.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Whereas angels, by the way, which are another one of God's creations that are rational beings,
Yeah.
you want to think of it.
Mhm.
that way.
This is where I'm
Right.
going.
No,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that these aliens wouldn't be that combination. They might be more physical, more spiritual, but they wouldn't be
Right.
the human recipe for.
What makes us human, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they are humans, like they're a lot like us, and there's just a lot of different worlds of human beings. And we're just on one of them.
Right.
I don't really have an opinion on which one I believe in more, but the Jesus problem, the incarnation.
Yeah, talk about what that is.
Yeah.
What is
So-
the Jesus problem?
I think the problem that people would think that if Jesus had to come to save us, if we were like we fell in the
Yep.
beginning, and to redeem us, Jesus had to come sacrifice, for our redemption. That any other alien species, if they were in the same boat, would also have to have God come and redeem
So
them.
if
That's at
if
least
they were fallen,
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So I think that if they are human, that's kind of a non-issue because Jesus can redeem the entire universe's human race. I mean, even if they're not human, he has the full power to do that. And he can just do that on Earth, and it's counts for everybody. But also, I don't think that if it was another species, that there would be the multiple incarnations. I don't think that. I don't want to say it's not possible because obviously everything's possible through God, but I don't think in the rules that God has laid out for how he wants to save the world or at least interact with this world, not just the earth, but the physical realm, I guess, wouldn't work. Because the whole idea of the incarnation is God marrying the human being to himself. I mean, it's the perfect marriage between
right.
the physical and the spiritual.
Right. He
And-
became man to save his creation.
and to consecrate his
become
creation.
that we become one with him.
Yes, exactly. So to do like a multiple, I mean, I guess you could, but it seems like the whole story of this world is and of Jesus is I'm coming to make you me and me you in a way. And so the human species is chosen as God wants to be us and wants us to be him and wants to have this union between us.
So you're saying that
So
does create a problem or does not create a problem if we find that these lights in the sky are actually rational beings? And quick Aquinas recap. The human rationality is what makes us human for Aquinas. I'm sorry, I should take that back. It doesn't make us human. Our will and our intellect are the spiritual elements of us as humans that make us more than just animals. We don't respond to our senses. I smell good food. I need to go toward it and eat it. That's what animals do, right? In fact, you'll see many of them that they can't help it, right? We have some goats. Whenever they see that red bucket and they think there's food in there, they run to the red bucket, right? Because they think red bucket food, even if, but they're not thinking, could this be a trap?
Yeah, their appetite's own.
They're slaves to their appetites, and an appetite isn't just the stomach; it's any part of the sensory appetites. We have that, and in addition, we also have the will and the intellect. We can take things in through our intellect. It's kind of like a big spotlight that's constantly searching for truth. And then once we believe we found it, it's not necessarily correct. It's the engagement of the will to say, now I'm going to make a decision about this. It could be a decision to believe. That's still an act. Or it could be an act in the world. But the will is deciding. And that's what makes us accountable for our actions. Nobody says, oh, that dog is an evil dog because he went and peed on the rose bush. That's what dogs do.
Yeah.
He didn't engage the will and say, should I do it? Should
I'm
I
going to do
pee
it
on
out of spite. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They just pee on the rose bush, But humans have this ability to be able to say, should I be peeing on the rose bush? Okay. And we can make a decision through our will. The angels, Aquinas would say, have the intellect and the will, but they don't have any physical appetites because they're not physical beings. They don't have mouths or eyes or bodies or stomachs or anything. They're purely spiritual beings. So where was I going on with this? I don't know.
You're asking if it creates a problem.
Does it create? Yeah. So does it create a problem that there's a rational? I'm sorry. Yeah. So the rational being, we've always seen ourselves as the humans are the only physical and rational beings that we know of. We're the only ones. Angels are purely rational beings. And as I said before, God has created another species, or you will, another being, rational being, called the angels, right? So there is this other thing that's not human that He's created. So it's not really a problem, and there is precedent for God creating multiple rational creatures, right? That's not the problem. But what about the issue of us being the only ones that in the world?
Yeah, and even if we're, so this is my thing. Even if we're not, it seems that the desire of God is for humanity. I mean, He's not incarnate as an angel and trying to join angels, the angelic body, to the godly body, I guess you could say. But He's doing that for humans. So one, maybe if there are and they're not humans, he cares about them obviously like He does angels, but he's not trying to do the same thing. They're different purpose than they are for human beings.
But there is something similar between them, okay? And that is, they both had to be tested.
Yeah.
So we have two rational species, and I hate to use the word species because according to Aquinas,
every angel is its own
each
species.
angel is its own species. As you know, the difference between a lizard and a dog, as crazy as it's different, or an earthworm and a dog, two really different species. Each angel is even much more different than that. Each angel, individual,
which is kind of interesting. What kind of makes sense in a sense that if you think of just purely the mind, I mean, obviously we all have human minds, but my mind's different than your mind in a very substantial way, and not our brains, but our actual will is different than Jack or Mike, and that if you have a purely intellectual being, the uniqueness of the individual mind, I guess you could say is.
That's true. You'd have to say, well, what makes me angelic?
Yeah.
And you'd have to say, I'm a spiritual being that has will and rationality. But they were tested. The angels were created and then tested. We were created, humans were created and then tested, right? If you look at, again, a Christian perspective, especially a Catholic perspective, Catholic angelology says that all angels were created. And in the moment of their creation, because there's no time in the same way that there is for us, but before they were given the beatific vision, because the idea that once you are able to have the beatific vision, now angels don't have eyeballs, but once you are able to experience God in His fullness, you can't say no to Him. There's just no way. There would be an impossibility for any creature to say no. So before they're given that, which is your ultimate reward, to be forever to be ever experiencing the thing that is always constantly new, so you never get bored. But before that, He said, will you do what I asked you to do? He went to your guardian angel and to your guardian angel and yours and mine and said, there's going to be this person named Jack Manhire, Will Manhire, Hannah, Mike, Jack, and they're going to be born at this time. They're going to live till this time. And your job is to, from the moment of their conception to the moment of their death, and maybe even afterward, who knows, to be their guardian and to perform the function of this guardian angel for that person. And it's not as if, and when they die, I'll assign you to somebody else. No, you're created, you angel, are created for the purpose of being a guardian for this particular human. Will you do that? Okay. So that's the guardian angels, but he went to all the angels and said, will you do this? And he didn't go around, but at the moment, and the most beautiful and the highest angel, the most intelligent angel, the one that, if you will, thought he was most like God, was shown all of history in an instant, and he saw that the God that he would have to give obeisance to, was going to be a talking monkey. Jesus Christ was going to be a talking monkey. He was going to be this material, crude thing, this unintelligent thing. It's not very smart at all.
Because he saw himself as so superior to the human race. That,
yes,
yeah.
You want me to worship a meat sack? You know, I'm pure intellect. You know, that's what. And no, I'm not going to. Now we can say things like that, and the next moment repent. Right? But angels can't. Their will is so tied into who they are because they're just pure will and intellect. They're nothing else. That as soon as they make that decision, it's their decision for all time. And you can't think of it as humans like, well, why don't they get a second chance? Well, that doesn't exist in the angelic world. It doesn't exist in their makeup. So don't even...
Because they're outside of time.
Yeah, they've made their decision for all time, and they still... That's still their decision. In other words, there's, if you will, within time, they're still making the decision. But yes, and it's all at once, right?
Yeah.
And so a third attrition is a third of the angels went with Lucifer. But those angels were not created to be in hell. They weren't created to be demons. And to back up to for the listeners, according to Catholics, demons are angels who decided to not go along with God. Yeah. Now, the ones that said, yes, sir, I'd love to do that. You know, I'd love to be Will's guardian angel or Hannah's guardian angel. I'm going to do it. You know, well, of course, you know, they then receive the beatific vision. And again, they are, if you will, one with God. Now, there's no redemption for the fallen angels like there is redemption for fallen man because of what we talked about. But that was there. As a side note, though, it's interesting that a lot of exorcists have noticed this, and other angelologists, that some people who seem to have these demonic attachments, like, well, why do some people seem to have more demonic attachments than others? Well, think about it this way. What if your guardian angel said no? You'd have to have another guardian angel, right? You have to make somebody else that said yes, right? But that angel...
that's interesting.
Doesn't get like another job.
Yeah.
He is made for that specific thing. I mean, how can you tell how many angels are there? Do you know? I mean, how can you tell how many people are here? How many people are here?
Yeah.
What would I say? I said, how many people are in this room right now? What would you do?
Count us.
You count the bodies.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Angels don't have bodies.
Right.
You can't count them. So this is from Malachi Martin. So how do you know what an angel is?
Their name.
Their function.
Yeah.
What they were made to do. So even the ones that were fallen were made to guard you and be with you and be so intimately attached to you that if you happen to have a fallen one, you know, now it's not like you're left alone, don't have a guardian angel, but you're going to be, that their function is still to be attached to you. And so that's a complete side note there. Okay. But there's intelligent, rational creatures were created, given a decision, tested, but the idea of redemption doesn't exist for them. Not even that redemption doesn't exist. The idea doesn't make any sense to them. Excuse me. For us, we were created, tested, we failed, but because we're in time, we have this idea of redemption. So the idea of a redemptor and a redeemer, who is God himself, who's going to come into space and time to save us and become us, makes sense, right? And we've always thought that's very unique, because even amongst angels, we're kind of unique like that. Like Jesus doesn't have to incarnate into an angel. It doesn't make any sense that it would happen. But
and there's teachers in the church that would say that if angels, they can't feel envy, right? But if angels could envy, what we're capable of doing is being able to be a sacrifice for Christ, because we get to have this choice of imitating Christ and putting our free will aside and saying Christ, and we get to partake in that sacrifice with Christ, right? So, which is the mass, and so we get.
We also get to partake in Christ too. To take that a little further,
that's true.
So yeah, it's not just like we're buddies with Christ. Right. We actually get to enter into Christ in a. That's
true.
In a I don't know. In a sense, like a matrimony sense,
and he's also allowed
being with like pure with the like one with him. Yeah.
And he's also allowed our actions to, if we choose them to become a participation in his ultimate eternal sacrifice too. You're absolutely right. Which is completely doesn't make sense to angelic beings. It doesn't exist in that world.
Say it again. What doesn't make sense?
That angel, your sacrifice can be a
Oh, right,
participation in the perfect sacrifice of God made man, and therefore perfectly acceptable to God.
Right.
the Trinity,
Right. Yeah. So,
So-
so my point with that is that God loves us humans so much that He gave us this gift of also becoming with Christ
That's a
and
good point.
embodying as Christ.
Yeah. That's a good point.
As far as we aren't just as maybe Lucifer thought. It's like we're not following these monkeys, these bodies. We get to partake with Christ in Christ. And even the angels themselves, God made the angels with a job, a function for us, for us human beings.
Yeah, he made a function for us, and I'll, if I can clarify a little bit, the doctors of the church would say each angel was made with a specific function within the creation of God,
Yeah.
visible or invisible.
Yeah.
In other words, like Portugal has its own guardian angel, the nation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just with the human being; it is, but it's also with all of God's creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have an interesting analogy with that for later, or another episode. But I think it's also interesting because the uniqueness of the human person, to kind of continue this, or the human being as a creation compared to angels, is that angels really are more of like an administrative role. They're more of an administrative creature, if that makes sense. Is in there?
Well, yeah, the name angel means messenger.
Yeah, well,
so
there you go. Where while humans have functions, at least as I understand theology, like there's a mission for us to do. There's ways we can serve God. Our ultimate destiny isn't as purely a servant of God, purely administrative. It's also communion with God.
So good point. So the Baltimore Catechism would say, why are we made? We're made to love and to serve God.
Yeah.
Right. That's that's our purpose, is to
Yes.
love and serve God, which is really the angels. Now the question becomes, what service is God calling you to?
Yeah.
He's calling us to, love our neighbors and to give him worship, right? What is he calling the angels to do? To help us maybe do that, right?
Yeah.
It's a little, I know what you mean by the administrative element of it, or at least from our perspective, it would seem more administrative. In other words, but see, there's a very this kind of gets us to the alien thing. It's a very earth person centered idea, right? The angels were made to help us.
Yes. Yeah, but my point is, it seems that there's no obviously there's heaven in the angelic sense, but at least as far as we know, it doesn't seem like angels. Because I know humans still do things when we get to heaven. We still can participate in earthly things as far as like patron saints and stuff like that. But then at the resurrection of the human body, at the second coming,
final,
humans are no longer in this we're obviously still serving God in the beatific vision idea, but we're no longer in this like playing the game sense, if that makes sense.
We're not sending messages back and forth to anybody.
Yeah, we're not in like the testing stage anymore. We're in like you guys have all proven yourself, and you're now in this second life, basically, where your purpose is to enjoy the beatific vision and to be one with me. Where it doesn't seem, at least as I understand, that angels aren't in that same position that like do these things and you're going to have this eternal rest, basically. And maybe they do, but it's not in the same way of
good
pure
point.
communion with God in that sense, as far as what the destiny of the human being is, as far as like as a species, as far as the destiny of the angelic being as a species, if that makes sense.
That's a good point. I'm interested in other people's ideas, and if listeners want to correct us on this, please fill out the comments profusely. But my understanding of the church fathers on this is that, again, before they were given the beatific vision, the angels were given the choice. The ones that chose no were never shown the beatific vision, and for all eternity they will not live in it. But the ones that did choose God, said yes, are then shown the beatific vision, which means they're living in the eternity of being one with God, who is pure spirit.
Yes.
Who is pure spirit, because God is pure spirit. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are pure spirit. The second person of that Trinity came down to earth and incarnated as a human being, lived, suffered, died, rose, and then ascended
Yes,
back.
Permanently a human
Is
being.
now
in
a
heaven.
human being is in
Yes,
heaven. So
yes.
then that allows us, St. Paul would say, to in our bodies become one with God the way Christ in a human body
Yes,
has
is
become
with
it.
God,
He doesn't
yeah.
slough that off. The human body, we believe in the resurrection of the body, right? And we will have a glorified body, just like Christ does. So that's what I'm trying to say is where I'm not sure I'm right on, but I believe what I think is right is that the angels kind of already are there.
Yes.
But that might be because of the time thing. You know?
Yeah, but also
Maybe we're already there if you take us out of time,
Yeah.
too.
And
I'm also talking about like the physical communion aspect too, because when we go to heaven as a spirit,
Because there would be no physical communion in spirit, right?
yes, exactly. But I also think it's a more intimate communion. I
Yeah.
mean, I could be wrong.
No,
but
I hear what
yeah.
you're saying. It's a really interesting
because
thing.
the resurrection of the body is like the completion of heaven for the human form, if that makes sense. Because when you die and you go to heaven, in death is the separation of the body and the spirit. So when you die and go to heaven, you are a spirit until the resurrection and the second coming, and then you're embodied again.
Yeah, so your spirit...
And again, you're outside of time, so it's
you'd
like
have
a
a
whole
spiritual communion, which
Yes.
is fulfilling all of the angels' being,
thing. Yes.
and is fulfilling part of our being, because we're both spiritual and material. But God didn't say, wait a second, I made the material bad and the spiritual is good. No, the material is good and it will be united as well.
Yeah.
And to our knowledge, we are the only ones who can have that
Level of-
union with God at both the spiritual and material level. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And the specialness of that intimate relationship that
The
no other
uniqueness of it.
the uniqueness that no other creation can partake in that. My whole point with all of this, though, is to say that it seems that human beings, apart from every other creation, has a very, very specific destiny. And I guess everything has a specific destiny, but a very elevated destiny. Even though we're one of the lowest creations along with the angels and all that stuff, we have a special destiny that does seem to be the most intimate destiny with God. So that, I mean, I guess God could do it with another species or race, but it seems that humans are specifically chosen for this. So let's say there is another alien species, another non-human thing. It does. I would, at least from what I understand, I wouldn't think that God would also become incarnate with that and then also do it, the
uniqueness of it become
unless the human body, as we understand the human body on Earth, is an accidental feature.
That's a good point.
Which I just thought of.
So so we would share in the material and spiritual union with our other material and spiritual brothers, even if they're reptilians from a different planet, only qua spiritual material, not hair and skin.
Yes, and that
as opposed to scales and stuff. That's an accident.
Proto-chimpness or whatever you want to call it, the hominidness that we come from, is an act. So to explain, St. Thomas Aquinas defines accidents as features or things not integral to the form or the identity. So your ears, if you don't have ears, you're still a human being, If you don't have a nose, you're still a human being. So the nose and the ears are accidental features.
And your accidents can change. For instance, what if you have a nose but your nose gets cut off?
Yeah.
Or my hair is dark brown but then it becomes gray. Am I any less human? No. I'm still substantially a human.
Yes, exactly. If that makes sense. If we shave your head now, you're not less of a human being.
But do you think that in the final resurrection, in the transfigured body, like Christ, that those come that you if you were born without an arm, let's just say, which doesn't make you any less human.
That's a different question. I do think that's an interesting question too. What is
which I think you do.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I think you'd be right. I think you'd be right.
You think you get an arm?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. But I think that's still different from, let's say you're a reptile or a gray, as an alien,
right?
And you wouldn't go to heaven and then become a Homo sapien.
Right, you'd be a glorified gray. In your glorified version of your gray or reptilian body.
Yes.
Right, and by the way, for listeners who are or maybe just coming in on this talk, we're confused. We're not speculating on theology as much as we're asking the question, what would it mean for a believing Catholic in particular, but a believing Christian in general, What would it mean for us if these stories of unidentified aerial phenomena meant that there were extraterrestrials behind them? What would it mean for us theologically?
Yeah.
And
I actually didn't quite follow your thought.
Continue on with that.
Okay, sorry.
I didn't follow your thought on the accidental features.
Okay,
and
I can explain that.
Okay.
So, what makes us human, or the importance of the creature of a human in the in like the heavenly sense, or at least in like comparison to an angelic being, is that an angelic being is the rational mind and the will, and human being is the rational mind, the will, and then the physical body,
The
as
material.
well. The material, yeah, exactly. And that's how we separate ourselves. Now, what I was saying could be a thing, and I don't know if it's true, but it's at least an interesting thought that I never thought of before. That Jesus coming, sanctifying creation as what we call the human being, the combination of the physical and the intellect and the will, would only be for human beings. Like that's like specifically for us.
Mhm.
Now let's say that there
Earthly
are
beings?
Yeah, earthly beings.
Yeah.
Now let's say that there are other intellectual. They're grays out there, akunami or whatever.
Akunai.
Yeah.
Like so, another intelligent
Yes.
being.
Now, I was just saying that I think it's at least an interesting thought to think that, well, maybe they are in the same way human as we are, from the definition of they have a spirit, they have a spiritual side, they have the will and the rationale, and then they also have the physical body. Now, they're not Homo sapiens, as in like you and me, we were from a very specific thing, and like a lizard isn't what we are.
Right.
A scout's not a human, a Homo sapien.
Right.
That's our species. But maybe in like the person sense of the human person, the Akunani or the gray or whatever would also be considered a human person, and the fact that they have scales or they're tall and gray or whatever, and they're not necessarily a Homo sapien, they might be a whatever you want to call them. Doesn't make them not a human person.
Right.
That the fact that they're an evolved lizard dude instead of an evolved chimp dude doesn't make them less of a human person in the philosophical categorical sense of like that their body as a lizard is the accidental feature. Our body from like a chimp form is the accidental feature.
Right.
The important thing is the embodied soul that has, the physical appetites, the intellect, and the rational mind. Or the rational mind and the will, I mean.
So my only question is, when God created Adam and Eve with very specific features as Homo sapiens, because we didn't evolve from chimps, in the creation story.
Yeah, and the creation story is also, you can definitely look at that as, what would you call it? I'm waiting for Dad to get back to use this word right. Like a saga story, that it's not necessarily completely literal, that Adam and Eve aren't, that the creation story isn't a scientific book, because we used to not record history that way. Like, we didn't record history in this, like in the way we record history now, that exact dates and times and locations and names and like specific facts until very recently. That we've been recording history throughout time a lot more like, I guess creatively you could say, but like the Odyssey might have historical truths in it and might even be used as a historical like document, but the Cyclopses weren't a thing. It's just it's a tool to tell a story that has a base truth of a historical event, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining this right.
I just came back in.
Jack was talking. I'm talking about how the creation story of Adam and Eve.
Real quick, even right before that, we're following his thought that if there was this accidental feature of a human being that was not what you said from chimps, and it was from lizards or something, or grays or some other species, like creation species, that though they are just as much human as we are. So that was a thought.
Yeah, and like the person philosophical
category.
So that was the thought,
Person, why don't we do this so we don't get confused and confuse the audience too? Let's use the word personhood for a rational creature that has both is that amphibian of both a spiritual creature and a material creature.
Sounds good.
We'll call that a person. A human being is a Homo sapien on Earth.
Sounds good.
That is the person on Earth is called, we call a human being.
Perfect.
There might be a person on another planet that we would call a gray,
Yeah.
or
Anunnaki.
or something like that. And what Will is saying, whatever the kind of bag that we're in, you know, whether it's skin or scales or, you know, whatever, cephalopods, whatever. It's the fact that we are both spiritual and material creatures
I really have
that
to pee.
that make us the person, and so therefore everything else becomes an accidental feature of personhood, even our Homo sapienism.
So following my question was,
and by the way, we're not saying that this is truth. We're just
no. We're completely speculating. I completely understand
Okay,
that. That's why I was saying we're following Will's thought here.
Right, okay.
But so my question would be, let's just say in that theory, maybe that was true. My question would be, didn't God create Adam and Eve specifically as Homo sapiens in the fact that we didn't evolve from chimps?
Right.
And Will was saying that I didn't actually follow what he was saying, but he was basically saying that there's. I actually don't know where he was going with this, but he was saying we didn't record history different. We record history differently. So what he was trying to say is that there's more of a storytelling aspect to the Bible, and that it wasn't literal. That's what we were talking about before you came.
So I'll just comment real quickly on that, but having missed it, there's a difference between facts and truth in this kind of post-Enlightenment Western mindset that we have. We think no, all truth. Let's say put it this way: all facts reveal truth, and therefore we tend to say you cannot have truth without facts. And this is why we have the problem of being able to say, how do you prove God? Give me facts. I want the facts. You know, well, no, in fact, I can say something like, you know, on Monday I got to go in the office. I got a million things to do on my desk. Do I have a million things? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a million? Okay,
There's like some cultural,
just the way I'm speaking. In other words, I'm factually incorrect. But the truth of my statement is there is truth in my statement. I am very busy, or
you have a lot of work.
I have a lot of work to do.
There's so much of that in the Old Testament, by the way.
Yeah. So so that's why you might have things like 40 days and 40 nights would tend to mean a long time. You know, just like we would say today, I got a million things to do.
There's also part
is that proven? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, is that church teaching?
Well,
Like,
can I?
Real fast.
Like,
Since St. Augustine, and a little bit before, many of the early church fathers regarded the Old Testament stories as in that regard.
okay.
That there is a distinction between truth and fact, and while we might be thinking more in the terms of fact, we need to be looking at it in more terms of truth.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Again, to a post-Enlightenment mind, that seems like it does not compute.
Right.
But you've got to put yourself outside of that.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
there's even examples like when the Israelites go and kill the Canaanites. I think it's this one specific example I think of, where it says like there was no one left after we won the war. Like we slaughtered everybody, and then like in the next chapter they're talking about them trading with the Canaanites.
Right.
So it's things like they're using hyperbole or, you know, figures of speech to say like we decimated them. Like we absolutely, even the word decimated.
Decimated means you killed 1/10.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't necessarily mean I actually killed 1/10 of them. I've just I really like significantly decreased their population.
You took a significant blow.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Right.
Okay.
So there's
that's
these figures of speech that's been used throughout and analogies. And again, I don't know if you touched on this, but the way we record things now is so much different than how we record
factually.
Yeah, and very specifically, factually. Super. Yeah.
I was saying
equals
like
fact.
post-Enlightenment.
Yeah.
It's different. Yeah.
Yeah. So and also you got to think there's a reason for that too, because now we can record so much data and we have so much time for interpretation of data. When back then a lot of it was oral tradition, a lot of it was there was one person that might be able to read and write, and everybody else's stories.
Well, and data and truth didn't necessarily have an equivalence as it does now
it's true.
in the Enlightenment scientific mindset of no, I have to be able to measure, reduce to measurement, and then compare by measurement.
Well, yeah,
So
because the scientific process is pretty new.
That's very new. That whole idea of thinking of in terms of a datum, right? Data is just plural for datum. I have a datum here, and what does that datum mean? I need to extrapolate a truth from that. It's actually amazing that we would think to do that, that we'd say, well, let's just extrapolate a truth, which is very philosophical, from this scientific capture of the datum. But I think, as a side note, we came into the scientific age with this idea of truth from a time that didn't necessarily equate truth to fact, right? Data and truth. And now we're saying, well, wait a second. Truth only is what I can record. What can I observe?
And we've forgotten what
We've
truth actually
We've forgotten
is.
that the truth is not necessarily synonymous with it. We've created it that way. So then we're going backward and say, wait a second. I can't find all the data for that 3,500-year-old story, so therefore it must not be true.
Yeah. And they weren't trying to prove data points. That's not at all what
Right,
they were,
right,
their
right.
intention
And
was.
there's also, and again, we're still on the side note here, but I'll go a little bit further. You've got like New Testament scholars who admittedly do not believe in Jesus. They do not believe in the miraculous. They do not believe he's the Son of God. They're looking at the New Testament in a historic context only. And so they're trying to figure out, well, when was the gospel of Matthew written, right? Well, Matthew talks about, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, and maybe it's John, but this gospel has Jesus saying, not one stone will be left on top of the other in the temple. Okay? There will come a time when that's not going to happen anymore. And so the scholars go, well, yeah, that happened in 70 AD. And we don't believe in prophecy. We don't believe that Jesus was God. So therefore, it had to be written after 70 AD because they knew it happened and they're incorporating it in the story. Well, okay, that's a huge presumption. It's a huge presumption that miracles don't happen, and so therefore, my search for fact and the truth in which I take out of that is going to be constrained by my bias that had to have already happened, and he had to know that in fact the temple would be destroyed.
Mysterious
in
phenomenon
70
can't
AD.
happen. It's impossible.
And by the way, there were rocks on top of each other.
Yeah.
There were a few stones on top of each other because they found them. There's one called the Wailing Wall, where a bunch of stones are still on top
So
of each other.
again, he wasn't.
So he
speaking
wasn't
in-
talking
in-
completely
yeah.
factually, but he was speaking in truth.
Yes.
There will not be one stone left on the other, meaning that will be gone. Okay. Now, having one piece of a wall left did not mean that the temple was still there. The temple will be gone. Okay. So again, a bunch of different side notes. I'm sorry, we can bring it
No,
back
I think that's
here.
really important for a lot of people to hear because I do think that's a common.
Hannah has a
misunderstood.
question.
So to bring it back to the aliens, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
After all of that, how does it relate? Because I've heard we're made in God's image. How does it relate to the aliens and that amphibianness? If that makes sense. Like, what part of us and them would make us
In
made
God's image.
or are they made in God's image?
Like, are you asking what the Well, I guess maybe to start, are you asking what the definition of what it means to be made in God's image is as a human being, and then go from there and try to figure out? Yeah, sure. I think you want to do that, Dad?
Yeah, I do. And I want to let people know that if you think we're just going to be talking about angels this whole time, we're not. I've got a lot more on the aliens and going back to Jack's observation of demonic deception and how people think of it that way. And I have some evidence, data for that, whether it's truth or not, we'll see. But so we're going to stick with this for a little while. Then I do want to get into, could this be a demonic deception as opposed to extraterrestrial? But for right now, I think we're trying to tackle this problem of what if they are extraterrestrial? What does it mean for our faith? Yeah. Mike hasn't talked at all, but he actually is here if you're listening to the podcast. Mike injured his back, and he's I think he's trying
doing
to
a lot of listening.
He's still thinking about how
he's trying.
Dad's back was hurt since.
Yeah. Like, what? This is what it's like. 30 years. Mike's trying to find his happy place.
Yeah.
Go to your happy place, Mike. Well, Mike, do you have any questions? I don't want to go to
No, not
his.
quite yet.
Okay. So the idea of, this is a great question. What about the idea that we're made in God's image and likeness? I don't know. I'm sure the church fathers have talked about this. I'm positive they have. I don't know it enough to quote it verbatim, but it would be interesting to look at it through Will's lens of, if a rational creature that also lives in the world is what we're going to define as a person. We do know that God has personhood. We know there's three persons. There's one God in three persons, right? So there's personhood within God. In other words, there's relationship because of that personhood. Because if there's just only one person, there'd be no other divine person to have a divine relationship with, right? So is that the image? Is our personhood our image and likeness? There are some that say we had his image and his likeness, but we lost his likeness in the fall. We still have his image. We're image bearers in the Imago Dei, the image of God, but we only retain his likeness through Jesus's redemptive act.
And there's also the ideas of love as our image, right? That our capacity to have sacrificial love for one another is.
Can we say that perhaps purely spiritual beings, to our knowledge, may not be able to sacrifice in the same way that we can, but certainly another person. We're using that term specifically here. Could have all of the elements of that image of God and likeness of God if we're choosing to define it carefully as personhood.
So almost saying that we were created in like the image of God from the Spirit, not necessarily materially, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think not literally. Like our faces does like how we look like Dad.
Right,
Dad's the paternal heretical image. Yeah.
Not heretical, but hereditary.
Hereditary. Yeah. We don't have like his like physical likeness per se. It's more.
At the same time, he isn't material.
Yeah.
So I feel like we also can't really have a material
right. So God God as a Trinity is purely spiritual. Right?
Yeah.
God the Father as creator of all, even the begetter of the Son, even though not created, is a purely spiritual thing that's happening there. So the image can't be about noses and eyes. But we can use it as an analogy to say that there is something we carry with us in our personhood that is that image, and that it would be great if I had actually studied, did some research on this. Looked at I'm sure the Catechism of the Catholic Church has something to say about it, but I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to say. But I can, at least for right now, I can sit comfortably with the idea that the idea of personhood and all the things that we talked about, all the things that we have that are the image of God can be in another person.
Yeah.
That breathes in a different way.
Yeah.
That has 8 limbs, that doesn't have limbs. That is something
amorphous or something. Yeah.
Something completely different.
Blob.
That doesn't look like anything that we would consider to be a creature that we've seen on Earth or something like that. Yeah. Again, I welcome correction.
Do you want to hear, or do you want to hear my thoughts? So I'm actually open to the idea now that that's a possibility. But in my opinion, I almost think that's very unlikely, because if Christ became us, as far as humans with arms, legs, nose, he came in as our so we have personhood and humanity. Is that what
personhood and human being? Yeah, exactly. So, humanity, right?
So if there was another person that was a Gray or Anunnaki, he chose to come into our humanity and is a human.
He chose our particular version of personhood. That's human.
I agree with that. I would go ahead.
Which makes me think it's unlikely. Not impossible, but unlikely that there's another personhood out there.
I know exactly what
that is human and made in the image of God, but doesn't look like us. You know,
And
I think so. I just think it's unlikely. I don't think it's possible.
I think it also then raises the question of, do the Greys whatever need redemption?
Yes, and
If that's the case, then how would they know about our redemption that's then saved
Very
them?
good
If
point.
that makes sense.
And that's what Mormonism is. Okay, let's get. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I thought you'd like that joke.
No, that is. I'm sorry, I was a little distracted. I've been saving this in my little bandolier, but to your point, Thomas Aquinas himself said, and I'll give you the site. It's the Summa, Part 3, Question 3, Article 7. He said that it was certainly possible for God to have multiple human incarnations. Now we got to be careful because we've decided to use human in a very specific way, and he may be using it differently, right? But the quote is, "It is plain that it has to be said that the divine person, God, over and beyond the human nature which he has assumed," meaning Jesus, "can assume another distinct human nature." Okay?
Yeah.
Now be careful because he's using human nature, but we've decided to use it in
as
different ways.
personhood. Well, we
Could
were
be-
using human, and then we
so
separated
his definition
it.
of human nature is synonymous with our definition of personhood.
Perhaps.
Yes.
But I think there's evidence here that Aquinas, I think he's making the same argument that the divine person can choose to incarnate into different forms of instances or forms of personhood that we're using our language as, one of them being a human being, right? He can choose to incarnate into another one. There's another theological. We're clearly we're clearly in the area of theological speculation.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Can I say?
Yeah, real fast. But there's another interesting question that I'm going to table there. Let's just say the Greys never sinned. They passed the test. They're Adam and Eve passed the test, let's say. Would there need to be an incarnation of God as Redeemer?
And then I think
Greys?
that puts up a whole other speculation.
In other words, would they know the Jesus that is them?
But then that also put the whole other question does the reality that we exist in physically, if we want to go into like a multiverse type reality.
Okay.
Does the whatever you want to call our contained universe right now?
Okay.
Are we like not a pocket dimension, but like in a separate place? Like, so the second coming and the resurrection.
I think we're going to the same spot. Yeah.
Are we, when we get our bodies back in heaven, in the new creation, the new Israel, the new Jerusalem, are we going to be in this universe still, or are we going to be in a universe void of sin? If that makes sense. So, like, is it going to be just another planet we're on in like Andromeda, or are we going to be in like a complete new instance of a universe, but void from sin?
Is that what you're going to say, Mike?
Yeah, I was like going the exact same way.
Yeah. So is it contingent? I mean, again, we're obviously very far into speculation, but is it kind of contingent that if you're in this universe, you are in a fallen universe? Like this whole universe itself is tainted.
That's a
and
great-
in a fallen realm or world. Go.
Even when the second coming, you get reunited with God with your body.
Right.
So then, if the Greys never did sin and they never did whatever, that means that their whole point of the destiny isn't
life.
there.
Yeah.
So
which means already united with God.
They're still in the garden. Yeah.
Yeah. So then would that then be in the same universe?
So let me throw a little bit of not really a curveball, it's like a curved BB into this, okay? And that it is the belief of the Catholic, and I think of all Christians, mainstream Christians, that our sin has affected all of nature.
I think
That all of nature, that the planets and the sun and the animals and our relation, everything is sick because of our sin. So I'm going to reframe your question in a different way to use kind of cosmology language. Does sin only affect nature? Does human sin or personhood, sin of a person, affect only nature locally?
Yeah.
Or does it affect it globally
Well, this is my
in
point.
the universe?
universally.
This is
where you're
exactly
coming
my
with
point.
the pocket, right?
Exactly my point.
I'm trying to rephrase your idea.
Yeah, exactly.
So it does sin affect it locally? If so, where's the border? Where does it stop?
Yeah, is it just Earth or the
And once the non-fallen Greys or
Interact with
Anunnaki
us,
come in to our locality, are they sucked down and are they now
Then
become
disfigured,
sinful?
or
Are they made impure?
infected.
Right, by the
said,
fact that our sin has infected all of creation. These are very interesting speculations. that I don't have answers
Me
to.
either. Yeah, it is interesting though.
So the question, so I would say that for me, if someone were to say, hey, if these guys were proven to be extraterrestrials flying around in these little Tic Tacs, right? Would that be a crisis?
They're probably drones. Let's be real though. Yeah.
I mean, who knows,
Yeah.
right? They're Chinese drones.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, like they might be aliens, but I think they're probably alien drones just because.
Nobody's in there.
Yeah, I mean, to be
it would rip your body apart.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is my argument with a lot of things. Well, this is one argument that I have, but it pertains to a lot of things. That, I don't think we're ever leaving this solar system. I don't think anything else is leaving their solar system.
Interesting.
I don't think it's physically possible. Like I don't think. Let's say we were in a perfect utopian society. I don't think the laws of physics support at least as we understand it.
Yeah.
The laws of physics, actually, even if we don't understand it, I would stand by this. But, the laws of physics don't support the human body being able to go at that speed, at that distance, without something happening.
Unless you're somehow guarded from that which is without. In other words, it was like a pure Einsteinian thought experiment that you were able to accelerate toward the speed of light, and your body wasn't ripped apart from the air molecules that you have to pass through to do that, or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and unless you were somehow,
you'd have to be in something like
you could bend you have to bend space and time.
You have to be in like a gravitational bubble.
Which don't you already kind of have to do to get your craft to go at that?
Which would mean that time would be different for you.
Yeah.
And you'd be going either super fast. Things would be happening either super fast or super slow, depending on your speed.
It seems extremely problematic.
So I get your point, which is, at least from our limited experience of not being able to actually be in the USS Enterprise or be in the thing that's going that fast, right? We might not. But to get to my final conclusion on would it affect my faith, I would say no. If I found out that they were either in the craft or they were controlling their fast, I'd say no. This is just one more piece of evidence about how that God does exist.
Yeah.
That because one of the arguments was, wait a second, your belief in God is that with all of these planets, we're the only ones here, right? And that's not true. We believe that there's an almighty creator who is well beyond our conceptions of him. His ability is well beyond what we conceive that he can do. And so it's one more mysterious element of this creator that I would hope would come along with not more revelation, but enhanced commentary, I guess, on the revelation for me to be able to understand this wonderful God that much better, and to be understand. So it would not at all affect my faith. I don't necessarily believe that there would have to be a second human incarnation of Christ, because I don't even know that there would have to be a second personhood incarnation, because it is possible that the second person becoming person in the way we're using the term, material and physical, in his sacrifice could have saved all things that were taken down by sin, and so therefore aliens would be saved as well through that. The question would then be, I think, more practical. In other words, should we be preaching the gospel to them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Should
I was saying, how would they even know of their own redemption?
How would they know of Jesus Christ? Or is the fact that they know about him is what drew them here? Who knows? I mean, what is their message that they're like, I'm coming to the place where Jesus was?
I saw a funny thing.
I mean, I'm coming to this is the Holy Land.
Yeah.
They're making a trip.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. These are all things that I don't think any of us can answer. But if they are in fact truly extraterrestrial and not hallucinations, demonic deceptions, which again I want to get into those as well, that would be my final. It would not shake my faith.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
But you also phrase the question of just, can you have an intellectual being that's not, I guess, part of not have a spirit but still be intellectual? If that makes sense.
But not
Like
have
think
a
of
spirit?
I see.
even like a dolphin. Like a dolphin can choose
Yeah.
like what to do, to eat fish, whatever. So can you have like an evolved
What's the limit
animal
of
of sorts?
consciousness? Of physical consciousness and physical like mindliness without it pertaining to the spiritual, to the eternal soul.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think
It
it's
is
a
a good
practical question. In other words, are the things that are controlling these craft, if they are in fact entities, are
embodied souls.
Are they embodied souls in the sense that their soul is immortal, right? Where animals have souls, but they are mortal souls, or the souls are immortal. And how would we recognize that? I want to take you back now to. You can disagree with me on whether it was Columbus that really did that, but I'm going to tell the Columbus story for the purpose of my point, which is all of Europe had been Christianized at the end of the 1400s, in 1492. And they weren't asking the question about, I mean, even Aquinas said, I guess there's this possibility that there's some guy living stranded on an island who'd never heard about Jesus, but everybody's heard about Jesus. Everybody knows about Jesus. Then they go to the New World and they find that there's millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, maybe more, of people that don't know about Jesus. And the theologians are having a freak out moment going, what does this mean? Do they have souls? Should we be preaching the word? What's our responsibility? This is where the missions begin.
Have you read the Book of Mormon?
It came specially for them. I know. And then this was a hard thing for us. It's like no big deal, but put yourself back then.
No,
where everybody's saying, wait, this is a whole nother question. It's the same question.
It is.
Really.
There's one on the other side of the planet, the other one could be on the other side of the universe.
And once we realize, these are human souls that deserve to know Christ because we want them to be saved too. They're our brothers and sisters. They're our brethren, and we want them to be with us in heaven, right? Then it became, okay, we need to go and bring Christ to them, right? I don't think there would be that much of a difference if they were on another planet. I think
you're completely right.
Because there are many other accidents about the way they look that were different than Western Europeans. And
agree.
now we're just like, no, they're, of course, no question about whether they're people.
That's a really good point.
That makes
But
sense.
it used to be a question.
It was a question. It was a crisis for theologians.
Of, are these even people? Yeah.
Right. 500 years ago, it was a crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even less than that. I think even like 100 years ago, people were still going.
But
I know.
But when we found out,
it's still. I think what my point was, it's still a more recent problem of defining the legitimacy of other human people.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have a funny joke that I think pertains to this whole situation, and I don't think it's heretical. I think it's respectfully funny.
Okay. You're disclaiming it as a joke, so
it's a joke. Yeah. So it's one of these, like, I saw it online. It's one of these like new video meme things where it's between like a person and then another person, but they're playing like an alien. So it's like a perspective thing. And the human goes to the alien. He's like, oh, so do you guys know about Jesus then? And he goes, oh yeah, we love that guy. He comes every year. We give him our best cookies. He's great. And they're like, and he's like, yeah. And they're like, oh, we don't really see him. No, he said like, well, we don't really see him. He's like, oh, why not? We bring him cookies every time he comes. What'd you guys do to him? And then he just like looks at the camera.
Where is that? Just a meme?
This was on online. I thought it was pretty funny.
Pretty funny.
I saw that.
Yeah.
So that is, I think we've covered, and we can talk more about this, but I think that would be under the option, because there are a few options, right? Again, either there are really people from other planets, right? Persons from other planets. It's a hallucination, right? Which could be a deception, it could be a demonic deception in which they're deceiving us, and it's not what it really is. Maybe there's four options, right? Really extraterrestrial, hallucination of the mind, a psychological trick, a deception, either by a nation or by a demonic force, or there's another country that has technology that we didn't know about.
It's possible. Yeah.
I don't think there's an option that it's ours, because I think that's off the table.
Real quick, just kind of an important technical issue. Are we good on video still? Because I just don't know how long we've been running, and I want to make sure that we don't run out of space on the card. We're good? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. So maybe we covered what if they're really extraterrestrials or really aliens. Let's cover now. I don't really want to go into the hallucination one. I'm not prepared to talk about mass hallucinations and things like that.
I think that could pertain to the demonic, though.
So maybe it's related to. Maybe let's talk next about the idea of what if this is a demonic deception.
Yeah, I would like to talk about that.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, Jack, but you had talked about that. You brought this up in your opening comments. I was wondering if you wanted to talk more about what you meant by it being a demonic deception, and we can go from there.
Yeah. My thoughts, and these are my thoughts, and these aren't based off anything besides my thoughts.
Yeah.
when I think of what this could be, and I think about the Anunnaki and the history of ancient aliens, so to speak, of because now, at first it was like, I just thought of this now, but when the show Ancient Aliens, I mean, there's a lot of material in there. I mean, it's not a
Let's
fiction
do a
show.
Manhire show like a Mystery Science Theater style, where we just watch all of Ancient Aliens. And
Keep commenting on it.
commentating on it. Yeah. So
There's a lot of material, but I have to say, doesn't it seem like it's mostly recycled material?
it is.
Like,
It's
like
mostly
the same
I don't know.
argument over and over again.
it usually is. Something with the pyramids. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the most basic structure. I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
So this is what I'm basing my thoughts off of, is that what this idea of aliens before now was like, well, it's just as real as Bigfoot, but now it's kind of coming out as, no, this is a real thing, whether it's national security,
We're seeing something. We have captured it on film and
it's
radar.
not pure
and-
speculation.
right.
So
It's not a people.
So I have a
cutting-
question. Then would that be able to, not like galactic, disprove illusions and stuff? They were able to capture it.
There is a thing called
On
mass
sense.
hysteria. We captured things like the
Los
spat of the
Angeles.
sun.
The Battle of Los Angeles was not a big thing.
What?
With the Battle of Los Angeles, when everybody thought we were getting attacked by aliens and it was all mass hysteria, turns out there was just like an electrical outage in like the 1950s or whatever.
I know
Oh,
actually know what you're
Angeles.
talking about.
Well,
yeah, but
Orson Welles did this in New Jersey, in which he had a radio show that was the War of the
Oh, that
Worlds,
was- yeah, that's
and everybody
that's
thought
another
the
thing.
aliens were really coming
Yeah,
because they thought it was a real news, but it was a spoof. But
Yeah.
it was a drama, but people thought it was a newscast.
Yeah. But in Los Angeles, people were like, the military was firing cannons up into the sky because they thought they were getting invaded by aliens, and everybody.
Yeah,
thought
I don't
the
know.
world was
I
ending.
don't know about that.
Yeah, the Battle of Los Angeles. I'll put some pictures in.
Okay.
It was a
You got to
huge-
tell us more about that. Yeah.
That's really it.
All
In
right.
like the 1940s, or I want to say it was the 50s. when we looked at,
really
like,
okay.
there was this all of LA thought that, or at least part of California thought that aliens were attacking. It was just like some blackout or something like that, like electrical blackout. But yeah, like the National Guard was deployed and they were firing artillery rounds into the sky trying to take out alien ships and stuff like that. And everybody thought, the sky is falling, world's over, the aliens are here, and
That's really
nothing. Like, it was literally nothing. There was
So that mass
It was
hysteria is different
yeah.
than a mass
Mistake.
illusion.
okay.
Because people would say there are some people who say, well, 70,000 people saw the miracle of the sun in 1917, and there are plenty of people who would say that was a mass hysteria of a delusional kind. Whereas Los Angeles, they were just misinformed.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
Nobody actually saw the aliens.
Yeah, it's like
right?
it's the difference. It's like, have you ever seen those videos of like the Protestant exorcists where they get into these giant stadiums and they're Pentecostals or whatever, and they're exercising like 100,000 people and they're all like rolling on the ground and stuff like that.
Right,
It's
the
like,
people are, so people are prone to suggestion.
Yeah.
And so they start acting or believing certain things. And there was that Mr. Ballin show about the Canadian guy, the woman that believed that they were really, the mafia
witness
was after
protection
the
program,
right?
and, yeah.
Even though it wasn't her disease,
complete,
right? So there are things like that, or people would say is a mass hysteria that can happen. But
so
that's not the same as being deceived. In other words,
yeah,
when I say deception, I mean somebody is
1942. Sorry.
1942. Okay, somebody is willfully trying to deceive us to believe that there are things in the sky that are perhaps of extraterrestrial origin.
okay,
That's what I mean by deception. And by the way, it could be
Okay.
diabolical.
Gotcha. I believe that's a possibility too, and that involves more of this interior, I guess, conspiracy, like government theory, and that could be attached to globalism. You know,
Right? Yeah.
so there. I think that is a possibility, but then it goes so deep, like every theory like that, because like what you've said before to me on times is that there's so many people involved in the government that these part-time people or these pilots that are saying that they've seen these Tic Tacs or something like that, are those all stories or are those real? So you'd have to make up a story that there was no.
I can't see that.
An hour and 30 minutes. That's where we're at right now.
Okay. Yeah. So to be clear, I'm not saying that it's a conspiracy and that people aren't really seeing Tic Tacs. I'm saying people are seeing Tic Tacs, but and people want you. The people who are making you see the Tic Tacs or are coordinating this want you to believe it's aliens. Okay, they have a reason for doing that, but it's not like they're not really seeing the Tic Tacs. They are really seeing it. It's not a delusion. It's not something that wasn't there. You know, it's not something that's beamed into your mind or something like that. You know, it's not a David Copperfield isn't making an illusion. You're really seeing it, just like you're really seeing this coffee
Now,
cup.
whether we're misinterpreting what it is or
But
not.
the question is this truly a coffee cup?
Yeah.
And somebody wants me to believe it's a coffee cup, but maybe it's like
It's actually a teacup.
a jar of maggots or something like that. But I think it's a cup of rice or something. I don't know. But they definitely want us to believe that there are aliens.
So when you say they, are you saying like a select group of people, like a human?
So the they is a big question. So it's too big for us to. I'll purposely zoom in on this, and to all the listeners that say, "Hey, wait, you're selecting your evidence, and you're not talking about all the different parts of deception."
We're just unprepared.
I'm doing it. Yeah, I'm doing it on purpose. Well, I do criticize one guy who happens to have a long red beard and no hair on top for being very, very sure of himself when he's making, and he says he's making very cogent arguments, but what he's doing is only selecting a certain amount of evidence to come into the aperture in the beginning, you know, and say, for instance, he goes, let's see if the idea of the warning or the illumination of conscience is real or not. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at this one person's book. Okay, now let's look through this book, and I will actually say that I have questions, legitimate questions, about what's in this book. Therefore, the illumination of conscience or the warning is unreal. No, the only thing that you can possibly say in that case is that that book is questionable.
Right.
But you can't say, I'm only going to allow this evidence in, disprove it. That's a straw man argument, basically, and say the whole thing is therefore suspect.
Yeah.
And so for any of those people that are listening to saying all you're doing is you're going to define deception and then talk about it that way, we only have time for so much. But this is actually from a recent...
And also, this is just complete conjecture. So, don't waste your time.
Yeah, exactly. We're not getting paid for this.
Yeah. No.
So this is from a recent, I'll call it a message from heaven. You know, there are these where the Blessed Mother is appearing to certain people, and some of these are approved, but they're so new that a lot of these aren't. This is supposedly from St. Michael the Archangel to I think he's Colombian seer whose name is Enoch. It just happens to be Enoch, okay? And this is the message, and it was on May 26th, so less than a month ago. It says that, I lost my spot. Okay, here we are. The fallen angels that you call in your world extraterrestrials are invading the earth. The sightings of the infernal ships are increasing. In the time of the last reign of the Antichrist, you will be able to see them. These infernal beings will come as angels of light, speaking of love and peace. Many by their lack of faith, knowledge, and distance from God will follow them, meaning many people will follow them because they're not close to God. In doing so, they will lose their life in the spirit. These fallen angels will accompany the Antichrist in his last reign and will have with him the approval of the kings of this world. For a time together with the being of iniquity, they will appear as beings of light to deceive mankind. When the time of Armageddon comes, they will come together. They will come together with their master. They will become, along with their master, what they are. In other words, you'll see them for what they are. They are demons.
I guess that kind of goes to what I was saying at the beginning. You know, what my belief is internally is that it's a it's it's demonic related. I don't know exactly how. I don't know if it's like animals
Right.
that are possessed, or if there's these demonic creatures that were made from demonic that.
I don't think the demonic can create. My understanding.
So
Or
But like manipulate.
Yeah,
which,
yeah, yeah.
They can manipulate. They cannot
know?
create, but they can manipulate.
and they also can't. I don't think they can physically manifest. They can physically manifest,
They can
but not.
physically manifest.
Well, but not like a demon couldn't create a body and then inhabit that body. They could create the appearance of a body,
They could
or
take-
take possession of somebody
Of
else's
a dead body
Yes,
and make it
but-
look alive.
Yes, but they couldn't under their own power, like create an actual physical object. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
At least that's my understanding.
That's true. So
Yeah.
the only God can create.
Yes.
And the devil wants to be able to have the powers of God, and so he does things like possession because the closest he can get.
Yeah.
He can animate.
He can't. He
However,
doesn't have his own clay.
they can deceive.
Yes.
Because they're incredibly intelligent, and they can make you believe. I mean, they can make you believe that we are here peacefully, and they can manifest.
Yeah, I'm not
they can
arguing
manifest themselves as Padre Pio. They can manifest themselves as Jesus Christ.
Yeah, yeah.
They can manifest themselves as
My
Blessed
sister
Mother.
lost Faustina.
Right? Faustina,
right?
yeah, that is an angel of light. All of them, by their nature, are able to do that. St. Paul warns us about this, that they can deceive us as angels of light. And so I think this particular seer is saying is that this is part of a larger plan, that all of humanity, in order for a one world government to come together in which the Antichrist will become the head, and we're all going to give him the power, something has to happen. And I've said this since the mid-90s when Jürgen Habermas said it. He said, the only way we're going to have true globalization and the world's going to come together is when the aliens come, right? Well, maybe he was more prophetic than he knows, because if aliens start to say, hey, guys, we're here, and we have good news for you. We're creatures of light and peace and brotherhood. And this is the human that we know is going to be the leader of your one world, right? People are going, I mean, most people are going to flock to stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, now what you got to do is that US dollar, you know, and the
Trust me,
euro.
we came in here on ships.
stuff like that.
Stuff's
I mean,
what's almost destroyed our world.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's going to be the 1960s script from Twilight Zone over and over again. And the deception is going to be there as well. That, in other words, it's just going to set everybody up to very quickly give their stuff over, because
Promise of salvation.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you, and it's going to be, we're going to make the world a better place. Paradise on earth, right? That's the ultimate demonic deception, right? That if we work hard enough as humans, we can become God.
Yeah.
Right? We can have heaven on earth,
right.
as opposed to, no, we need to reduce, we need to diminish, and so that the image of God within us can in fact become, it can increase,
Yeah.
it can decrease.
Which is basically what communism too
Yeah.
is. It's an atheistic.
I say it's exactly what communism is.
You know, it's instead of God being the higher power, the state is the higher power.
I think the man's the. This is the
Well,
higher
you know what I
power,
mean
but
by
the
like
main
the government
focus.
of
Yeah.
like and the people that
I think you're both right.
you know
Yeah.
yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. So this is why I think a lot of the warnings, even from Fatima, have been warning about the errors of Russia, you know, and communism, when communism comes again and things like that. It doesn't necessarily mean an economic system. It means this idea that no, the man is the one who will become God, and that we will achieve this, but we only achieve it together. And so there's this idea of brotherhood and fraternity, and you know, there are many people today that are so lost in humanism that they would say, well, isn't that good? I mean, doesn't yeah, but it's the brotherhood.
It stems from a good.
It's the brotherhood of Christ, brotherhood in Christ. It's not brotherhood for the sake of brotherhood. Archbishop Fulton Sheen once said, the problem with the world is they want the brotherhood of man, but they don't want the fatherhood of God. And I think that's exactly right. And this has been we've been warned about this, about the error of seeking fraternity from the beginning. I mean, that's what the French Revolution was about, right? Fraternité, unité, is it equality, equalite? I can't remember now. But those are the three things. That fraternity, brother. Okay, fraternity, how? Like, why are we brothers? In what way are we brothers? Well, Christians would say we're all brothers in Christ, right? That we have a brotherhood with each other, we have a kinship with each other, because we are now sons of God, just like Christ is
Right.
a son. We have an heirship, right?
We all come from the same Father,
As
as far as God, the divine
It's
person.
through
it's-
God that we have
we
it,
are all His creation.
as opposed to no, we're together in this, man.
Right, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
even like a brotherhood of like a band of brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's really good because in a war you want that type of brotherhood, or
And
they can't only be that.
Well, and I might even go so step further that it comes from good intentions. And
Oh, it always does.
and it always does, because I think.
I think literally everything does.
Yeah.
By the way. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
yeah.
but it's a good thing to be brothers, right?
But what I mean, so that comes from a good place. But what I think is happening right now, and what's going to happen, is going to be a brotherhood of sin. I hate to say this, but stuff like LGBT, and anything that is like prideful, basically sin, lust. We're going to be this brotherhood, quote unquote, based around sin, whatever that looks like. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know if it's like rioting. I don't know if it's lies.
Well, I think I know what you're saying, because it's this brotherhood of it's almost, well, the way I like to think about it is that the reason that they're, at least I think of this one thing, is the reason that you see so much like outspoken, I don't want to use the word pride, but like demanding of reassurance, or like demanding of validity, like the
Validating
the
my choices. Yeah.
in these certain groups that before was seen to be bad or sinful, and you don't see it in other groups, is because of the inherent. We were listening to a podcast me and Hannah earlier today about abortion, and because when you look at abortion and you get an abortion, there's only two truths you can really like, or two like options you can take really afterwards. You can either look at it and go, I just killed the person and that was terrible and I did something awful, or I can celebrate it because I can try to repress that it's terrible, and then make everybody else go, I was a pioneer and I was fantastic, and we need to celebrate modern health and medicine and women's rights to choose and stuff like that, because on the inside we do feel bad and we do go, was that okay? I don't think that was quite right.
Well,
but then I need you to say, no, Will,
validate
that
me.
was right.
Right, and that's
then
exactly what I mean.
That's
Yeah,
what I thought. I was
yeah,
trying to articulate it a little bit better.
yeah.
Or a little bit
You're
more
right.
for
So
you.
we live in a world of validating each other's following our appetites, or validating our choices, whether they're sinful or not. Sin doesn't exist, right? There's no such thing as sin. There's only my choices, and because I'm a human being and I'm a good person, we're all good, right? Even theologically, there's this idea that, well, none of us are worthy, so therefore all of us are worthy, right? We're all equally unworthy, so therefore we're all worthy, if there's going to be any worth. And that is, again, a brotherhood that's based on us, not based on somebody else besides us, a creator, right?
Well, yeah.
And that's so. And this is, but for centuries, that has been the prediction of the bad times, right? That it's going to be a bad time for the church and for the people and stuff when we start to think of ourselves as people. It's not even just with centuries. This is what happened in the times of Noah, right?
Yeah.
Right.
In the days of Noah, this is what happened. And what happened when the flood came? They were marrying and giving themselves in marriage. They were eating. They were just living their lives and validating themselves.
yeah,
even though you had 100 years of this crazy guy making a ship saying, "You guys need to repent." They're like, "Stop telling me to repent." I can imagine them saying the same thing we would say today, which is, who are you to judge? There was a
Right.
famous book in the 1970s, I'm okay, you're okay, right? And that's what it is. No, I'm okay, so you're okay. And don't judge me. And then it started to rain.
Well,
Right.
The same thing also happens, I think it's right before the book of Judges. And I think the line is, I'm paraphrasing, this isn't exact, but like there was a need for the judges when like every man's truth became his own, or something like that. It's something like that. I'm off, but
No,
it's the same. Yeah, same idea. Even the Israelites, that they fell into this. I can make my own truth, and my truth is, exactly what we're seeing today. And that's when the judges needed to come and needed, like, Samson and all of them to bring them out of this sin. And they were in disarray and falling apart. And Israel is as weak as it's ever been. And all this stuff.
Historically and spiritually, especially, it doesn't end well for us when we get on our high horse like this.
No.
And this isn't the first time this has happened, right? it tends to not end well. And when
I don't think it's ended well
I was
yet.
going to say,
No.
I think it always.
when we reach a really high pitch of this type of thinking and living out this thinking, it seems that whether one believes that nature truly rebels against us or not, I'm not talking about like Mother Earth. I'm talking about that our sin is so
Disordered. Or
yeah,
actually
where
just so
the
disordered.
vibrations are so strong coming out of our sinful actions that the nature itself is disturbed, right? And so volcanoes, earthquakes, nature is offset by this. Whether you believe that or not, there does seem to be a lot of natural disasters for people that were living a certain life.
It's true.
And then you just find them kind of like, forever encased in ash or something like that, or their firstborn are killed or something like that, or and
Massive plague hits. Or
exactly,
famine or-
and so
It isn't.
floods and fires and all these types of things. This is one of the ways that if we want to make sure that a lot of people aren't being skeptical about this fraternity. In other words, we want to accelerate the fraternity. There is a presumption here too that the devil knows his time is short. This is from Revelation, right? And so he's basically flailing around like I don't have much time. I'm going to take as many people out as I can with me. That he has to hurry.
Yeah, he's kamikaze.
Yeah, he's kind of kamikazing, but he also has to hurry, and he's incredibly smart. He knows you better than you know yourself, and you'll never win against him intellectually. So intellectually, he can deceive you left and right. All right, he'll run circles around you, and but for the power of Christ, you don't stand a chance. It's when people that go against him saying, "I'm going to take you're in for a beating," if you know.
Yeah.
But he can do this to humanity if we allow it. Now, if it is a religious deception, if it is a demonic deception, then it would, and I'm speculating here, but it would only make sense in fulfilling the other parts of prophecies like this that says there is a person who will emerge that will want to take us away from the idea of God, but it will be wrapped in this idea of light and truth, right? But also probably feeling good about yourself, right?
Yeah.
And feeling good about your choices and things like that. And we're willing to give everything up. I think to Will's point, we're willing to sacrifice a lot to get validation from people.
I think so, and I think
we really are.
this is also wrapped up. I think it's also, we're seeing it currently, and I think it's going to keep going. This kind of destruction of like what's called like the patriarchy now, that the only reason you're feeling bad about this, or that you have that guilt about the thing you did that is good but you think is bad, is because people have been oppressing you forever, or for the past. So it's the church's fault that you feel bad. It's not your fault for doing something wrong.
You're a victim.
Yeah, exactly. It's
It's
this victim mentality that
and so therefore what we have to do is destroy that institution and that structure, and then you won't have to worry about feeling guilty anymore, because what we're going to do is we're going to take away what the thing that's saying that you should feel bad about this, the thing that's saying it's a sin, the thing that's saying you should be doing something else, when really you're looking out for yourself. You deserve some me time, right? This is your life. This is your decision, your choices. I mean, how are you going to get what you want out of life unless if you're shackled with things that are holding you down, like unwanted children. Bill Nye said this, which I don't believe, because we really shouldn't be saying that women shouldn't be getting abortions, especially if they don't like the guy.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Like, what?
Oh, it was so bad.
Yeah. But anyway, that's a side.
You watched
Trent.
Yeah.
But that's very comforting for all of us. I mean, gosh, all of us. I mean, don't for one second think just because you're a believer that you aren't prone to falling into that trap. We all want to feel that we're doing right, that the decisions that we made and the ones that we're making are the correct ones, as opposed to someone saying, that was really bad.
Yeah.
That was really bad. I'm not judging you as a person. I'm just saying that action was a bad thing, objectively. Now you and your God have to figure out what you're going to do about that. But I can't say that was good what you did. Because like John the Baptist had to say, no, it's wrong that you're marrying your brother's wife. as opposed to, oh, but everybody
Not-
should be happy,
Right.
You know? And so people don't want to hear that. What they do, they cut their heads off.
Right.
And so I'm going to go a little bit further. So there's going to be a bunch of people that say, here's some people that are promising me feeling good about myself. And I don't have to necessarily be in one of these more friend groups. I just have to feel good about what I'm doing in my little corner of the world. But all the people that need to go away and go into camps, and maybe we never see them again, are the ones that are saying no to these creatures of light, that are not, that are against the creatures of light.
Yeah, because they're stopping our utopia. Yeah,
Exactly. They're the ones that need to be removed. And we're already seeing this now. The cancel culture is, in fact, saying, wait a second, we need a reason to get rid of these people, because once we get rid of them, it'll all be good, because we won't have anybody we won't have any of the bad voices left.
Yeah.
Well, this is the entire purpose of Freemasons. Like, I mean, arguably, I
Yes.
would say that their entire existence is, their entire belief is that if we can only rid the world of the Catholic Church, then we can reach utopia, because the one thing standing between us and perfection is the Catholic Church.
Human perfection.
Yes. Yeah.
Human perfection through human action.
Yeah.
Right. That's they're
the real Illuminati, by the way. Just going on a little side tangent. When people are always talking about, like, oh, there's this secret organization, and it's the Illuminati, and they're plotting against. Like, yeah, they're called
the
Freemasons.
Freemasons.
They're called
Yes.
Freemasons, and they're not even secret about it. You can go down to the local Masonic temple if you want to.
right.
And they're satanic. It's pure. It's a whether they know it or not.
Yes,
It's pure.
yes.
I'll say it's Luciferian.
Yeah.
It's Luciferian. Yeah,
it's
you know,
Luciferian.
it's straight from hell. You know, as far as what's going on, is devil influenced. You know?
I agree. And the reason for the viewers, if I'm saying Luciferian instead of satanic, is I think satanic evokes an image of somebody saying a black mass and stealing hosts, you know, from the
Satanic
church,
worship.
satanic worship and sacrifices that are things we don't want to talk about. Whereas Luciferian is saying, I will not serve. I am the God. I will be the creator. You know, it's what Saint Michael's name is, who is like God, right? Because there's an implied answer in that. You know, not you.
Yeah.
Right. It's not you. Yeah, you know, there's no one like God. Right. There's only one God. And so, but the Luciferian part is Lucifer saying, I will not serve because I will reign. I want to reign. You know, and John Milton's line of, I'd rather reign in heaven than serve in hell is.
Not to reign in hell than serve in heaven.
What did I say?
You said the opposite.
Oh, yeah. I'd rather reign in hell than to serve in heaven.
I think we'd all rather do the other one.
No, exactly. Right. Sorry about that. And I said it with such a profound, like that's one for the clips.
Gravitas, yeah.
That's right. That's why it's Luciferian.
Yeah.
And it's Luciferian because this idea that man can make himself a god. And I don't mean in the sense of an Apollo or a god in that, or even a god of a
Like
Yahweh.
the Ubermensch in a
but
sense.
it's the overman that I know that we don't need God, in fact, because we're okay. And in fact, we can bring peace on earth. All we've got to do is make sure that we get rid of, as Will said, the people that are holding us back, that are not enlightened.
Okay.
If we get rid of those people, we're fine. And that's why the Catholic Church has always been the enemy of Freemasonry.
So it's more people oriented than it is that I don't want to follow God's direction. As far as so when he says we're going to take down the Catholic Church, it's the people in their virtues and values. But it's not like we're trying to eliminate God. We're trying to make a godless.
They're not acknowledging the fact that God is real and that we worship Satan, so we need to take down the Catholic Church so that Satan can reign. They're just saying that we as people are being oppressed by the Catholic Church. It has nothing to do with God for them, other than the ideology of God. But the reality of God, they couldn't care less about.
We don't need God because we're fine.
Gotcha.
We will bring peace on earth if this damn medieval structure that so many blind people are following like stupid sheep to the slaughter, if that would just go away. And so what we have to do is we got to try to make it go away. You know, and what we have to do is we got to try to get a pope who thinks the way we think. Because then he'll tell those people to think the way we think. Because it's going to be really hard to kill 1 billion people. You know, 1 billion Catholics.
Right.
But if we can get those 1 billion Catholics to start thinking like us, we're going to be good. Because this is the true way. You know, this is the way. Now, again, that is Luciferian. That is, I am the one who can control and create a destiny and mold the reality the way I want it to be.
So it's similar to the ideology of Lucifer, but not
Yes.
I
in
get it,
participation
yeah,
with
yeah,
Lucifer.
yeah,
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Got it.
And so if there is going back to and by the way, reading things that like current seers and things like that aren't necessarily strong evidence, because you can say, well, he could just be making it up, and he certainly could, or he could be deceived, right? There could be a demon.
I guess that's what I meant by Lucifer or satanic is that it's
demonic.
It's demonic.
Yeah,
as
Dad was
far
just
as-
giving you the right terminology,
yeah,
not confuse people.
Yeah.
No, a demonic deception. And I have to tell you that and this again doesn't have any evidential value whatsoever, outside of my own subjective belief in it. But I remember hearing these stories, and the word that kept coming to me, without even me thinking about it consciously, was deception, deception, deception. This is the deception. In other words, the way I took it was, this is the deception that's going to be needed in order for there to be.
You're talking about the UFO videos.
The UFO videos. I was thinking, the only word that was going to my mind was deception, in that this is going to be necessary to install someone that is going to, within 5 to 7 years, pretty much running the whole show.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I mean, think about it. How can anybody talk about the coming of the Antichrist? Is it realistic that the entire world can change like that in 5 to 7 years? I mean, a lot's happened in 2020, and it's accelerated, but really? No, something has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be
a catalyst.
There has to be a catalyst, and there has to be a catalyst that is a deception.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go to the religious prophecies, this Antichrist will be deceiving in and of himself, and he will do things that will look like he's performing miracles. He will raise people from the dead. Although all they'll be doing is the corpse will just be the demons will be possessing the corpse and make it look alive, and things like that, because they'll be in league with these demons. And so I think the idea of it being a demonic deception has to presuppose the demons being in league with this people or person, whatever you want to, the tight group of people or one person that, in order for it to come to some culmination that we're not just deceiving you because we're bored,
Right.
There's a plan there's a plan for this, and it's a big plan.
Yeah.
Otherwise it wouldn't be, well, we were just having some kicks in 2021 and we were bored in hell. We thought we'd be doing this, but there's no really big payoff on this. No, it has to be something that's, if it is a demonic deception, I think I don't know that it is, but if it is, I think it has to have something that has a big payoff for them, or they hope it's going to be a big payoff.
I wonder, this is just something I just thought of, and it's pure speculation. It's not important really at all, but I wonder if things like raising the dead and stuff like that will be used as, because I think when you read Revelation and stuff like that, you typically think, at least I do, you typically think of somebody that's coming claiming to be Christ, or like impersonating Christ. But I wonder now, thinking about all this, if it's not going to be that, if it's going to be like the miracles and all that stuff that Christ would do, but it's going to be under like the umbrella of science and technology, that like, look, I can, with this new tech, because of how our since we got rid of all your hoo-foo crap, we were able to evolve go so far into technology that we have these machines that can raise the dead, and we have no problem with money. Communism works perfectly if you just do it like this, and it's selling the narrative of a technological utopia instead of a theological utopia.
Sure, and especially if you're adding the biotech into that, I can make it. You can make enhanced humans.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, with this chip and all that stuff.
And gorilla human hybrids.
Chimeras or whatever.
Yeah.
It also could be a lot more believable if you had the alien equation.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
That's a big jumper.
I
guess what we brought, guys.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have a team.
Yeah.
I have a team with me, and we're going to show you what to do.
Exactly.
I think so. I agree with that, and then there's something else though, because Scripture says that there will be a period of time where the Antichrist will rise. I'm talking about the Antichrist, not various antichrists and prefigurements of them, but there will be a time where he rises as a kind of a political figure, but then he will He'll then take a turn into the religious sphere and say, not only am I leader of the world, right? But I am God. You should worship me. You should not just obey me as the leader, but you need to worship me. Because again, what does Satan want? He wants to be worshipped. And then what do Revelation say? They were saying, and people will claim, who is like the beast, right? Well, that's exactly what Michael's name is, right? Who is like God, right? So he wants to imitate God to say, so he has to become, if you will, the beast.
Right.
And I don't mean he becomes a hairy man. I
The
mean
blue man.
Exactly. He has to go from being the sweet talker and the leader that we think we need to get to utopia, to being the creature that is the Antichrist that everybody's afraid of, that is going to demand religious obeisance as well as political obeisance.
Yeah. Do you think though that I think
So that's my yes and.
yeah.
2 hours. Okay.
Okay, I still wonder though if it's going to be like at least for me, I'm still picturing it as like I'm coming in the place of Christianity, and like Islam and Christianity and all that stuff was just like prefigurements of what I am, and we're going to, it seems like, at least how I'm thinking about it like right now, is that it's going to be this more like morphed into this hyper secularism that does involve some kind of worship, but not in like the Jewish type of or Christian Judeo-Christian whatever Judeo-Christian idea of like kneeling down and like bowing, or opposed to like giving him all of the power, giving him all of our wealth, put full trust in him and being under him like we would a God, but not going, you are God.
Most of the people that have commented on this from the beginning would say that it has to go that far because Satan won't be satisfied.
Gotcha. He wants the actual
I am God. He gets people kneeling to him.
Yeah.
He gets people praying to him. Pray to me. Kneel to me. And so he's going to demand that in his self-centeredness. And in his insecurity, and saying so it's not well enough for him saying, well, I'm basically like God.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Because Jesus had a smartphone. No, he didn't. No, he's gonna have like
the 1942 version of Hitler where he starts to just rapidly go from.
That's why a lot of people would
Is
say
a
Hitler
figurement,
is a prefigurement of the Antichrist, as Napoleon was, and Stalin and things like that. But especially Hitler, that there's this guy's good. He's fixing the road. I mean, this is what happened in Germany. The roads are fixed.
Right.
Infrastructure works.
Our economy's going.
Our economy's going. We're coming out of it. Things are good from a human perspective, right? And now it's not just I'm the chancellor. I am your Führer, right? And you have a personal allegiance to me, right? He didn't go that one step to say I am God, but everything started to become about him, right? And this is what we'll see on the political element, but Scripture and the church fathers and theologians say there will be the demand for religious worship, because he'll want to mimic God, he'll want to ape God, and he would like it to be his church that is doing it. So I have bishops, I have priests, I have. It's just like the one that guy has. I got one too, right? I don't know what that will look like, but I'm sure he's not going to. And he'll say things like Jesus was a really great person. Like he did a lot of great things. He was awesome,
but he wasn't God.
He'll never say he was God.
Yeah. I wonder if that has anything to do with the rise of Islam now, because that's their sentiment.
Good point.
Because it's predicted right now that in like by 2050 or something like that, Islam is going to overtake Christianity, at least in its daily like conversion rates, not necessarily in its total populace, but on its like on the
it's on the rise.
And that is their whole thing, is that no, Jesus was he was a really good prophet, but he wasn't God. There is no Trinity. There's just Allah, the Father, and everybody else is creation.
So he's going to be. I mean, most people that talk about it say he'll eventually be talking in God language, and he'll be using religious language, but it will be this ambiguous language. And I'm not saying anything about Pope Francis as being this person or being a forerunner or anything like that, but our Holy Father does use ambiguous language that unfortunately confuses a lot of people, where a lot of people will say, that language means what I want it to mean. Therefore, he's saying something good. While people over here can say, no, he's saying this, and that's what I want it to mean. And therefore, he's good. He's good for anybody, if you use ambiguous enough language. Yeah. And there's going to be kind of this hyper version of that, but it's going to be much more orchestrated.
Which, to be fair, with
a higher intelligence behind it.
Yeah, but to be fair, is not just to cement the fact that we don't think Pope Francis is the Antichrist. That's
he is not the. I'm not saying that he is the Antichrist, or I'm not saying he's the false prophet.
Yeah, my point.
Anything like that. Yeah.
My point is that that's a trick of most modern politicians or political leaders of hyper ambiguity, and he seems to have fallen into the trap of that. And it's just an anecdotal evidence.
What a great way! Yeah. In our day of modernism and politics, the Holy Father has joined the ranks of being a
ambiguous people pleaser.
Ambiguous people pleaser.
Yeah,
that's right. But it will be like that as far as the way that he makes everybody feel good. But remember that Scripture says it will be so well done that even the elect will be deceived. That even some of the elect are the ones that are the remnant, the ones that are holding true, right? The ones that are saying, no, I'm waiting for this Antichrist to come. And Christ says even some of the elect will be deceived by this. And that is why he said, for the sake of the elect, he's going to keep it a short time. Because if he didn't keep it short, everybody would be deceived. In other words, it's going to be that good.
Wow.
And so that's why you have to be that's why a lot of the messages from heaven, what I think are the true elements of them, are saying you've got to be vigilant. You've got to stand fast.
Cabin in the woods, no TV, no internet. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
We're cut off from society. We don't even know what year we're in anymore.
Well, it is. I mean, you've got to be careful what you're listening to, what you're watching, because it can influence you into doing that. Not in a hypnotic way that you're under hypnosis, but you will be convinced. And
I can already see exactly how, understanding how people are talking nowadays and how easily the people I just talk to in everyday life. I'm already thinking of people that I know that would be within 3 seconds going, Will, how are you not on board with this?
Right.
Are you?
I thought you liked Jesus.
Come on, this is so obvious. I can.
Yeah.
I can't articulate exactly how it would go, but I know that I can feel already the pressure, and I can see the trajectory so clearly of, this is 100% possible.
And you're wrong, Will.
This is so obvious.
You're a bad person.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. Like the fact that you're not on board.
Yeah.
And they're going.
You're the crazy one.
You're the crazy one, and in addition to you're the crazy one, we're in a situation where we now can legitimately say crazy people shouldn't have YouTube channels.
Yeah.
Crazy people shouldn't have Facebook. And then maybe crazy people shouldn't be allowed to go to the shopping center. Or then they shouldn't be able to own houses, right?
We need to
re-educate them for their own sake, and for the sake of society. And then other people go, yeah, I agree. I think that's right because we're being charitable to them.
I know concentration camps look like this, but they're different. I promise.
These are not concentration.
All
they got to say is these are not concentration camps. Yeah. These are re-education camps. Yeah. So that
like North Korea, not like North Korea. No. I promise you, it's different.
Yeah. and I can see it saying, gosh. Senator Ted Cruz keeps on saying these are concentration camps. These are not concentration camps. Read my lips. Yeah. Not concentration camps. He said they're not concentration camps.
Yeah. Did you not hear him?
Yeah.
But did you not make your own opinion on what it looks like and how it acts? Yeah.
It's going to stem straight from the leadership.
It's going to be easy.
It's going to be a landslide of just I think it'll be like one of those like COVID or anything else that we're seeing now where we're just going to wait, how did we get here so quickly? Over the course of what felt like 3 days, I'm in a camp now.
Yeah.
I thought we were friends yesterday, and now you're turning me in. Yeah.
No, very much so, and it'll be within the family.
Yeah, brother against
brother against father, sister, daughter against what? This is scriptural, and these things will happen. That means something else too, by the way. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that. There will be those who are turning each other in out of charity, right? Just like getting stuff in the arm is out of charity, right, and stuff like that, and. All these ambiguous words, these feel-good words will be used. And you're right, very quickly things will change. And that's why everybody says you've got to stay vigilant and you've got to be willing. You shouldn't necessarily seek your own death. That's actually wrong. But you've got to be willing to give everything over, including your life, because otherwise you're either with me or against me type of thing. Is, hey, if you decide to fall into the deception just to save your own life, even if you don't really believe it, guess which side you're on?
Yeah.
You know, you don't get counted on this side, you know, because eventually there's going to be a reckoning.
Yeah.
And the small amount of people that are willing to say, I'm not going to do this and I'm willing to give up my life for it, are going to be the ones that are given a reward when the reckoning comes and takes everybody else out. We saw this in Noah, right?
Yeah.
Small amount of, by the way, the ark was built for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people. There's a whole floor for people, basically. And what, 8?
Yeah. I think it was actually 8. Yeah.
8 people: Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives. That's it. Those are the only ones, because everybody else gave in. And you can only speculate that they were probably people who thought, well, that's hard. You know?
I was just thinking, well, 2 things. One, I thought of the Simpsons. Chief, I'm pretty sure that's a dead body. I thought that too, Lou, until I heard lawn trimming.
You got to pay attention.
Yeah.
Lawn clippings.
Yeah. And
Yard clippings.
yeah. And then I was just thinking too that actually the hardest, I think, martyrdom, because I was thinking, I always thought, you know, like saying yes in the moment to death. I mean, that's hard, but that's like, if you can just push past that little barrier of like discomfort, you're like, okay, I'm safe on this side.
Yeah.
I think the harder martyrdom is losing your life and not dying.
No, you're right.
The camps or the torture. Yeah.
Or
even just
losing your cars and losing your job and having to move into a small the social. Aren't you taking care of your family? I mean, these are the pressures, right? Like, why? Well, no, I can't work there if I have to sign this testament that says I believe this. But what about your family? You're gonna let them starve? What kind of father are you? You know, and that those
or how are you raising them? Like, what are you teaching them?
Right, what are you teaching you? Maybe I should take your children away from you.
Yeah.
You know, if you are actually doing this, and you know that you aren't stable, right? And that's much harder.
I'm helping you,
right? And that's why also we need to, we need to detach from things of the world, because if we're detached from everything of the world, they can't take anything away from us.
Yeah.
You know, and then we can give ourselves.
We talk about
Christ.
this all the time, and I think the only way you can do that, just like you were talking about, if you go head to head with Satan and you don't have prayer. I was listening to talk about Father Altman, who's basically saying the same thing at a conference of Catholics. He's like, even you guys, the 300 of you that are here in the middle of Wisconsin, not all of you are ready for what's coming. Like, you know, you're like the spiritual warfare that, like, the preparation. He talked about preppers, you know, and stuff. Is like, and then he says that people say in derogatory, there's physical preppers, right? But and even if you're doing that, you know, which most of those people are in that mindset. I mean, this is like the very Catholic of Catholic people. Not even all of you are ready for what spiritually ready for what's coming, which is intimidating, you know, and you know, that's, and the only way to do that is through prayer. And Father Calloway talks about all the time is, you know, the rosary is this weapon in the spiritual warfare, you know, and this is why it was given to us, you know.
You know, the one of Father Ripperger is an exorcist. One of his lay assistants was on a show, U.S. Grace Force, which, if you like the show or not, it's worth watching it because of the guest. In this case, his name's Dan. And he said that about how Satan divides even the families, that, you know, that the husband is praying. Okay, great. The husband's praying the rosary and the wife's in the other room praying the rosary. Why aren't you praying together? You know, because, you know, great. You're praying the rosary. Your kids are praying the rosary. Why aren't you praying together? Because Satan rejoices in the separation. And so you think, no, I'm preparing. See, I'm preparing. I'm preparing. And a lot of what we don't see is the preparing of the self is also the preparing together, you know? And he said, anything that is unifying is a foot in Satan's face. Anything that even is divisive, even if it's good that you're doing, what you're doing is good, that is, it's more toward him than it is a foot in his face. And so his call is as radical. You need to be examining everything you're doing, and even if you say, no, I'm doing something good, how could you be doing it better? How should you be doing it in a more unifying way? How can you be doing it in a more efficacious way, et cetera? So it is worth seeing. It's on U.S. Grace Force, Father Heilman's a podcast. But yeah, the rosary, and our mother, Blessed Mother said this in Fatima, and she said it in Nikita too, that things are going to get so bad with fire falling from the sky that the rosary and the sign left by my son will be the only weapons left to you. I don't know what the sign left by my son means. I mean, we can speculate, but the rosary.
It's a Glock 18. No.
But the rosary is very clear.
Well, it's the cross, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Is it?
He's talking about. That's talking about after the warning, right?
Yeah, like
Or the elimination of consciousness.
yeah. It's going to get so bad that you only have two. You only have two weapons left: the rosary and the sign left by my son. Maybe the sign left by my son hasn't happened yet. Is it the Eucharist? I don't know. I mean, I have no clue. But I do know what the rosary means.
You're right. Yeah.
So this is why, even in this house, and we've been doubling down for the last couple of years on the rosary, where we haven't been doing it at all before. I'm not saying what you guys have been doing, but as a family and stuff like that, and we keep trying to do it, and it's hard, right? Because some nights it's like breaking out those rosary beads is like climbing Mount Everest. Like, just saying a decade is like this podcast is really good. He uses a lot of military terms. Like there's this idea of embracing the suck. Like, this sucks. Yeah, this sucks. Right. I can't wait till it sucks more. Like, yes, get out there because it sucks, you know? Yeah. And it's like, no, this is hard. Yes, it's hard. Exactly. And okay, great. I'm going to work when it's hard. In other words, embracing how hard it is to be ready. Yeah. Because if even the elect are going to be deceived by this, or most of the elect are going to be deceived by this, Father Altman's right. Yeah. Out of a room of 300, maybe 10 to 30 of them might make it. And they all believe, no, I'm in.
Exactly.
I'm ready.
That's it's intimidating.
It's a scary thought for sure.
It's more sad. It's like shorting the stock market, or shorting like the economy, like the market, like in The Big Short, when you're shorting the housing market. Like, everyone was going to be rich in that. People who made that trade, and were prepared for it, right? They were going to profit from it. But so many people were going to suffer from it, and it's kind of like that feeling. Yeah, I was watching clips of that just because I'm a fan of that movie. But it's kind of like the idea.
Well, the only difference is it's not binary. In other words, if you're ready and are going to do well, you're not going to be doing well on the backs of somebody else's loss. You know what I mean? Their loss is not your gain.
No. I mean, when I say the gain is literally heaven, because those 10 people that are ready, you have to be ready for martyrdom. Like that's basically the level of preparedness you have to be. Like, you have to be ready to die. So like, and because what we're talking about, like that's what's coming. It's not going to be cancel culture.
But it might be worse than what we think was of martyrdom, because we might be thinking we're ready. It might be.
I'm hoping I die at this point from this.
I think I
gotta be ready to live through it.
Because to live through it, and to have to live, and it's one of the things of Akita, the living and be the dead.
Yeah. 35. Give me the guillotine. I'm ready.
Or it's like,
I'm just kidding.
I think we're getting the sign. I think we're getting the signal to end the show, but I'm not sure. Is that what that is?
Don't pay attention to Mom. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Real quick though, to bring this back to the full circle on aliens, in what's coming. Yeah, I think it's unlikely that they're a personhood. I think out of all the options we have, I think deception makes the most sense in the role of the way everything's kind of
where the world's going now.
Otherwise,
I do know what you mean. It's more like, wow, with the way everything's happening,
just came at it.
It's like, I was waiting for this one.
Yeah.
You chose aliens. Interesting choice.
Yeah, interesting choice.
Clever
choice of weapons.
Why? Effective.
Quite clever.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we covered two of the big things that I think are being talked about, at least within Catholic circles, around this, the Department of Defense releasing these clips as well as the report. One is, what if they are in fact extraterrestrials? What would it mean for our faith? And I think we concluded that it wouldn't mean anything negative for our faith. It would in fact show that we have a creator who is beyond our understanding of his ability,
Even more than we thought,
to create. And it wouldn't in any way theologically, going back to what Aquinas says about it, it wouldn't be in any way saying, well, therefore Christ can't be the sole, the sole savior, the sole redeemer, the sole advocate between the Father and all of those types of things.
Yes.
And number two, we didn't talk about mass hallucination, and it really is beyond kind of what the show's become to talk about the international threat. But what about and there's plenty of people talking about that in the mainstream news, but what about this idea of a deception? And is it either a human deception, a diabolical deception, or a teaming up of the two, right? To where there is a certain human element collaborating with the demonic to create a deception that's going to lead to a state of where the end game is embracing completely of humanism, and getting rid of those who are standing in the way.
Yeah.
Right. Which, to Will's point, would be a Freemasonic type of playbook.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good place to end it pretty soon.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think,
any more points.
No.
Yeah.
I think going past 2 hours too. I don't know what our video card has. I think it was
I don't know either. 32 gigabytes.
it was like 2 hours and 30 minutes last time we did it on the card and stuff like that. 220.
Yeah,
So
there
it's a
we're
good time to-
maxing out.
I think I might. Do you think we should cut this into? We'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it might be 2 shows.
I think I might make it two.
It might be
shows
the
just
one
'cause
on
of the topic.
one topic and the other.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And it'll give us a more breathing room between the next episode if we want to or something.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a fun topic. I hope.
I
that was
agree.
fun.
I think it was
Yeah.
really fun. That was one of my
really
favorite
fun.
shows.
Yeah.
Really
I
got
hope
into it,
people, I hope listeners and viewers think the same. Let us know. Hit the like button, share, all that type of stuff. You know why. But until next time, thanks for joining us on the Manhire Show. I'm Dad.
Jack.
Well,
Mike.
hand on the board. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.